Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku Was Stark's Conscience Part 5. If you guys enjoy this What If and want to see Part 6, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗵𝗲 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. More of my 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴. 2 weeks later, Kendo had been tasked with introducing a new student to 1B. Hi, I'm Itsuka Kendo. She said, 𝗏𝗏𝗏. Loki said. Class 1B. Kendo had shown him around, asking questions and trying to get a pulse on the quiet guy. What sort of? Kendo started but saw a group in the hall. Come on guys, I told you stop stalking one. Kendo walked over and saw 𝗏𝗲 actually leading the discussion, with Midoriya. No, I will not have faith at just your word that it was dealt with. 𝗏𝗲 pointed at Izuku. Tell me right now exactly what you saw fit to ensure that pervert doesn't lust after us again. No. Izuku said, the process should be set, but the true test is almost here. Kendo had grabbed 𝗏𝗲 and pulled her back, catching her hair before she could make any moves yet. I think 𝗓𝗏𝗄 started, but Kendo had elbowed him. I'm gonna let go of your hair. Walk away now. Kendo said to the vine-haired girl. We just did our finals. Hope yo --. Kendo had glared at the blonde court copier. Loki's face showed his confusion. Just, Kendo started, it's gonna take a while to explain. This is Midoriya, by the way. He's won his class Republic, we've met. The two said at once. A million questions had been started as the borderline hatefulness the two were putting off towards one another. Midoriya hang back. Aizawa said, walking out the hall. Odinson, remember what Nizu said about being a student here. All students are treated equally. Loki said. And you are under no obligation to interact with anyone from 1A unless during joint classes. I suggest using that privilege. Aizawa looked at Izuku, his eyes looking more tense than angry at anyone. When Kendo and the others were away from 1A, Kendo stopped. Okay, that was gonna need some context. What? Loki asked. I've done nothing wrong. Who's this 𝗓𝗏𝗏? Minoma asked. Our new classmate. Kendo said. Welcome 𝗓𝗏𝗏. Minoma said, holding out a hand. Loki shook it and the kid had froze solid. I didn't do anything. Loki shouted. What's your quirk? Yui asked. Everfrost. Loki said. Aizawa was called and Minoma's quirk was shut off. What have we learned about using someone's quirk without asking? Aizawa asked. TTT to NNNOTTT2. Minoma said, shivering. As soon as Aizawa stopped, Minoma refroze. Aizawa repeated it with a changed shot. You won't have your quirk for around half an hour. Aizawa said, instinctively reaching for his eyedropper, but shook his head. You had no part in this. Aizawa said to Loki before leaving. I didn't. Wait, yeah, I didn't, Loki said. Keep it that way. Aizawa said before leaving. So where are you from? Pony asked. Asgard. Loki said. Oh, you speak Chinese? A boy asked. He just spoke English. Pony said. I'll speak. Every language that isn't coded I speak. Loki said. That is such a useful quirk. The satyr girl said. It isn't a quirk. Loki said, anyone can learn it with the right runes. What's your name? Pony asked. You may not have it. Loki said. Who? Pony tilted her head. I think introductions are in order. Kendo said, my name's Itsuka Kendo. My name's Pony Tsunatori. Pony said. Loki kept a mental note of everyone. Then when a green-haired female's head floated off, Dullahan. Loki shouted. Who? Loki stopped before looking closer to the headless body. A headless rider. The nymph girl, 𝗏𝗲 said. My name is Loki Odinson. I am the last child of the Lei frost giants. Loki said. Wait, Loki. As in Norse Loki. Minoma asked. Yes. I am that one. Before you ask, no, all my illusion magic is currently not available. What happened? One boy asked. The green-haired one showed up with my brother's hammer and broke every bone in my body. Loki said, I was held in a government lab higher than Valhalla on Midgardian painkillers. The chimera who governs your school is offering me the chance to learn to be a hero, as you call it. Wait, Midoriya attacked you. For what? Satsuna asked. Because I'm me. Loki said, bowing his head. The hammer appeared in your school's medical bay and he knew I wasn't far behind. Honestly, if it were me in his shoes, that isn't an overreaction. Wait, if you're really Loki, did you really be 𝐎𝑅𝑑𝐺 Tokage asked. Of all the things you ask, it's that. Ibra said. Okay, first of all, that horse was very persuasive. Second, polymorphism is AF headache. Loki said, never change gender during shape-shifting, you will pay for it. So wait, if you're here, does that mean Thor's here too? Yui asked. He isn't gonna kill Izuku, is he? Kendo asked. I'm pretty sure he couldn't even if he wanted to. Loki said, my brother is learning to properly utilize his sorcery. I guess that's something I have over him. Ice formed near Loki's fingertips. I mean, you're here learning, so that's a step in the right direction. Shinso said. I guess. Loki said, thinking back on meeting the Earth's primordial. So what's Asgard like? Meanwhile, come on. Gran Torino said, whacking Thor on the head. Remember, distribution of power is key. Maintaining proper level is the difference between life and death. Thor had made progress. Him just unleashing his inner charge was not at all a risk. The redesigned arc reactor had survived going to 1 million. Thor had felt thirsty enough to drink an ocean. He hadn't ever felt both this powerful and this limited. You are cruel but wise. Thor said. The energy only requires a third to hold the level. Climb then hold. Torino said. Remember boy, control. Thor had gotten to a stable point. His whole body was trembling. Now walk through the city without touching any of the robots. Torino said as robots were set up to move like a common city day. Thor was running down the false road, making sure the lining was never getting far from his body. Nizu's office, how's he doing? Izuku asked as Nizu watched the security feed. Better. He might have to join the next batch instead of joining 1B, Nizu said. Izuku nodded as the board was set up. You want me to relay anything? Izuku asked. Yes, I do. Nizu said. Dorms, attention everyone. Listen to me very closely, this is important for finals. Izuku said. We've been studying all week. Mina whined. Nizu would never put a student in a no-win situation. Izuku said, these finals are meant to test how you've grown since we've got here. Each of you will need to think about everything during these trials. This is the same thing he gave Kendo to tell 1B. No test will be impossible. Remember that. Are you gonna tell us what they are? No clue. Izuku said, I can guess, but any plan will probably be circumvented by Nizu, so here are my only advice I can give. Listen to the instructions very carefully and remember that whatever the teachers throw at you tomorrow, you can do it if you pay attention to everything you've learned here. Now everyone, I think we should get some rest. The physical test will be after lunch, so remember to eat so you aren't lethargic. Aoyama, remember bread. Sato, low sugar breakfast. Momo said, Mina, no cell phone in bed tonight. Sheesh mom. Mina said. You all need to sleep. Izuku said, we need everything we can get, so everyone be ready. Field Class 1A were brought to the grounds after lunch. You will be going against the teachers. Nizu said, grinning. Now all will be working in teams of 2 except for Shoko Todoroki, Momo Yaoyorozu and Katsumi Baku. Nizu said, Team Sato and Kirishima vs. Cementos. Team Azui and Tokoyami vs. Ectoplasm. Team Ida and Ojiro vs. Power Loader. Team Uraraka and Aoyama vs. 13. Team Ishido and Kaminari vs. Nizu. Team Koda and Jiro vs. Present Mike. Team Hagakure and Shoji vs. Snipe. Team Ineta and Siro vs. Midnight. Team Momo, Todoroki and Bakuga vs. Iron Liberty and Aizawa. Wait, where's Deku? Katsumi asked. Oh well, his trial will be the same as all of yours. Nizu said. Which one? All of them. Nizu gave an evil smile. That's, Ochako started but stopped. I see Aizawa is sinking in. Midnight said. Iron PMP will be facing all of us. Think of it like a fluffer for all your trials. Wait, what is dash? Each teacher will have a flag with a code. 𝗍𝗂𝗧 said Midoriya's goal is to retrieve the flags from each teacher. The exit of the field is locked by a digital lock with each teacher's names. Once all codes are punched in, the gate will unlock. The students all looked at one another. Please make your way to the observation deck. Vlad said, Midnight if you would. 𝗍𝗂𝗧 said. The students were cleared out as Izuku was gas-chambered by Midnight's somnambulist. The students were cleared out as Izuku was gas-chambered by Midnight's somnambulist. It took longer than they thought for it to put him down, and he was already tackling Aizawa for the code. Come on, we gotta get him into the maze. Power Loader said, strange he went for Aizawa first. Where is the logic of that? Aizawa said, there's no quirk for me to shut down. It isn't about your quirk. 𝗍𝗂𝗧 said, his goal at the codes. Center of the maze. Izuku was getting up. His vision was still hazy. You're in my maze now, little human. 𝗍𝗂𝗧 said over the loudspeaker. Not for long. Izuku leaned against the right wall and just ran. Incoming. Izuku jumped over a spike trap. On your 6. He leaned forward as 2 projectiles launched from behind him. Oh, this was gonna be fun. Observation, this is just cruel. Mina said. Don't think Izuku doesn't stand a chance. Momo said. Where'd he go? Sito asked as the screens lost sight as a fragment of a trap was thrown at the camera. The next camera was shown Izuku having climbed up the wrecking ball. I hope 𝗍𝗂𝗧 is okay. Mina said. 𝗍𝗂𝗧 is nearly as armored as Midoriya. His clothes all contain some form of use. Momo said, don't think about holding back when it's your turn. First flag captured. Izuku was playing with 𝗍𝗧𝗧's phone, and suddenly threw off his gym uniform. He bolted out the seat and jumped off the crane. The undersheath unfolded and the plates caught him. The undersheath unfolded and the plates caught him. He just got 𝗍𝗧𝗧's cameras. Vlad said into a walkie, he's en route to Aizawa. Copy that, moving to intercept. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 said. Roger. 13 said. Aizawa? Seriously? Aizawa thought as he could see a bright flash from the direction. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and 13 have been disabled. Vlad said. What, how? Aizawa shouted. He just blasted 13 until I think she threw up. Vlad said. Who? Aizawa asked. I didn't know. Oh God, my stomach hurts. 13 said over the radio. He got my flag but he left 13's. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 said. Logic. What the hell is his plan? Aizawa though. He turned and was staring down the barrel of the tank missile launcher. Hand it over, hand it over. First rule of ninja. Don't get caught. Second rule. Never pick a fight you can't cheat. Aizawa handed it over and held up his hands. When Izuku was up in the air, Aizawa pulled out his Glock and emptied the rounds into the fleeing student, trying to hit one of the lights. Snipe, he's headed your way. Aizawa shouted. The chambering of a rifle round was the only confirmation. Oh, I haven't got to use 𝗵𝗃𝗲 in months. Snipe, the homing quirk user, readied his rifle and breathed. As the target was visible, Snipe had a single shot before he was within Midoriya engagement distance. The trigger was pulled and he managed to hit directly in the center light. The outer case of the armor was damaged but not the internal main reactor. A palm was raised but nothing happened. Izuku had been distracted and Snipe had pulled out one of his 2 revolvers. B and Arthur. Izuku had been distracted and Snipe had pulled out one of his 2 revolvers. B and Arthur. B had been loaded with an experimental electromagnet round. Please work. Snipe thought. The round hit and nothing happens. It's a nuclear reactor. EMPs aren't gonna do anything, Izuku said, finally dislodging whatever had stopped Snipe from getting blasted. 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was disassembled by the student and the revolver was unloaded before Midoriya took off. 9mm, Snipe said, looking at the bullet. He en route to Midnight. Moving to intercept. Toshinori said. Aizawa. Nice shootin', partner. Snipe said, that pea shooter saved my life. You're welcome. Midnight, on your 6. Flares. Izuku said. A tank shot from Iron Liberty was dodged. As Izuku was deck-ending towards Midnight, All Might had jumped out faster than Jarvis could detect. As Izuku was deck-ending towards midnight, All Might had jumped out faster than Jarvis could detect. Izuku was getting hit by the Iron Liberty suit and All Might. All taking place mid-air. Thanks for the remote piloting. Izuku had shived All Might in the ribs where his old injuries were. Thanks for being this stupid, Izuku said, grinning. As they plummeted into the arena, Midnight was Ant and All Might ripped Izuku's helmet. Midnight now. Izuku held his breath and pulled something out. The entire pink cloud was vacuumed in a canister. Midnight, All Might shouted. I'm trying here, Midnight said as a mouth covering popped out the chest piece. I've got one idea. Toshi dash, Midnight turned and stuck her butt out. I'm gonna need a hand with this. All Might reeled his hand back, and when the hand met flesh, Midnight let out a groan and the mist turned nearly into a liquid, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 sludge. The viscous slime was thrown at Midoriya. Jarvis, I need a pick-me-up, Izuku said as he swayed, applying adrenaline shot. Izuku had grabbed the flag and took off. All Might was down from the somnambulist, so Midnight grabbed the glasses. Observations, he's already going for the exit. He only has 4 flags. They watched the codes get typed in. 𝗳𝗏0 use NASA Hynun GR 33K hidden leaf admin 1 red light Danny Phantom make some noise. Wait, how does he dash? No way, he has the final code. Vlad said, just as shocked as the students. Vlad said, just as shocked as the students. Honey, Midnight said through the suit. She's got no idea how to handle that thing. Momo said. Spray and pray seems to be her plan. Izuku turned and dodged a shot before shooting the unmanned suit. Izuku turned and dodged a shot before shooting the unmanned suit. The door blinked and opened. Izuku had collapsed just outside the gate. Later, Izuku had been picked up and woken up with smelling salts. Congratulations, Nizu said. I believe this experience was a good learning experience for all parties observing. How the hell did Deku get all the codes? Katsumi asked. I only needed Snipe, Eraserhead, Nezus and Midnights. Izuku said, still woozy. The rest were obvious. Please elaborate on that. Aizawa said. Power Loader most likely would have just put a basic password, so it was either password 1 or admin. 13 is a huge space otaku, so JPEX or NASA would be her pick. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 loves to remind everyone he had found the recipe for Greek concrete and he wouldn't put concrete as a code, too obvious. I should have guessed Aizawa would put hidden leaf since he hates Naruto, so by putting that as the code was a smart deception. Present Mike put his first album name. Midnight used a common safe word which honestly I should have guessed but wasn't sure. Snipe, I would have guessed something else. And Nana Shimura is All Might's dead mentor. Nizu's was clapping. The whole crowd was shocked in silence. Plus, the most powerful weapon in intelligence-based survival is learning to adapt. Nizu said, everyone remember the teachers will be wearing restraining weights for all of your tests. Nothing here is a no-win situation if you remember to think things through. Izuku watching over strange stuff too. Izuku watching over strange stuff. Anyway, Cloak and the Eye of Agamotto can't be taken with me, so I need you to guard them with your life. Strange said. Oh, before you go, Izuku said, handing Strange a box. The Sorcerer Supreme opened it and a glowing light shone. The Sorcerer Supreme opened it and a glowing light shone. Wanted to keep you safe, Izuku said. Strange felt it in his hand. The mana from this was familiar and foreign, but it felt as if he was holding a pair of tweezers. This will definitely help. Epic facial hair brothers, Izuku asked, raising his hand. Strange let out an exhale through his nose. Epic facial hair brothers. Strange walked through a portal and Izuku walked off. Izuku looked at Cloak and said, you're looking a little frayed, buddy. Want a little help with that? Cloak rubbed Izuku's cheek. Alright, let's get you fixed up. Izuku laid Cloak on a desk and was checking it. Don't you dare, mortal. Agamotto, Izuku asked. You are nothing but a minion holding a treasure. Don't think about damaging anything. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Red or blue? Izuku asked, looking to Cloak. Cloak made a single wiggle. I'm thinking gold trim. Izuku spoke to the sentient magic item. You will cease whatever it is you're doing, mortal. That cloak is older than you. 𝐔𝐬𝐽 ready the nanobots. Izuku said. Yes sir. Make a wire frame of our fabric friend here. Make sure every string is accounted for and its location. Constructing wire frame now. Mortal. Start at the end of the strings. Weave the strands through the inner nanotubes using the frame. Unhand my cloak at once. The eye was now floating on its own. Izuku didn't even flinch as he reached for something and held it over the now open eye. A single drop hit the exposed eye. Your potions won't. It blinked. What is this? Visine. Izuku said, you seem a little irritated. Now on to the story. Thanks for 600 followers guys. Aizawa and Iron Liberty Aizawa had been lurking on one of the roofs. The difference between All Might and Iron Liberty fighting styles were frightening. In the middle of the road was a statue, not a man. Aizawa seen the way Izuku moved in his armor, and the fact Izuku had gotten to the point he could trust it to catch him mid-air was terrifying. He honestly had no clue what Nizu was thinking. The first strike was from Bakugo with Todoroki following behind and Yaoyorozu shouting about teamwork. The American-colored armor was coated in ice, and unlike Izuku heating himself out, the surface plates just flexed the ice off without moving. Little tip when driving in the winter. Toshi said as he backhanded Bakugo into a wall. Always check your antifreeze. Aizawa activated his quirk and moved in. Nizu, you're in my maze now, little humans. Nizu said, cackling as Mina and Denki were moving through it. This seems so unfair. Mina said, I don't want to hurt the principal. Our goal is escaping the maze. Denki said, Nizu's up in the crane. Welcome to SCK City. 13 said before saying, wait, that came out wrong. It's okay, I'm not that good at witty banter either. Ochako shouted. C'est la vie. There are those that shine bright in certain things. No. Aoyama shouted. Thank you for not ripping on me, I don't play villain a lot. 13 said before blocking a laser shot with her finger port. Midnight Mineta and Zero were looking around. Do you feel conflicted here? Zero asked. No. Mineta said. Dude, seriously, what did Midoriya do to you? Zero asked. A system update. Mineta said, looking around, pulling off a few pops. He started laying traps. Hello boys. Midnight said. Keep that mask on. Mineta shouted, throwing a pop ball. Snipe armed with his other set of handguns. Butter, and I can't believe it's not butter ones made for RBB bullets. He had a perfect advantage point to pin the two down. SHT, how are we gonna do this? Toru said. What have we learned this year? Shoji asked. I mean, nothing that could help us. Toru started. Midoriya said Nizu wouldn't put us in something we couldn't win. Shoji said. Present Mike Gyre had just gotten thrown back by the pressure wave. The impact pain was surprisingly minimal, but she couldn't get through it. Are you okay? Koda signed. Yes. What? Koda asked. His ears bleeding from the sound. Cementos Sato and Kirishima were moving through the city looking for Cementos. Ectoplasm the teacher had split into copies while Tokoyami was using Red Wing and Dark Shadow to scout. I'm counting 10. Dark Shadow said. We need to move. Ribbit. Tsuyu said. On your 6. Tokoyami shouted, grabbing Tsuyu. Dark Shadow blocked the ecto copy from grabbing Tsuyu, and Tokoyami had looked around. Come on baby bird, we need to go. Tsu, when I jump I need you to grab my chest. Tokoyami said, crouching to charge his pack. Right, Ribbit. A bunch of new ectocopies jumped from the ones near them, and Tokoyami spun to avoid them. A bunch of new ectocopies jumped from the ones near them, and Tokoyami spun to avoid them. Hey, we still got payments on this. Dark Shadow shouted as they flew off. Sorry. Ectocopy shouted as they flew off. You're paying for this. Tsuyu asked. Technically I'm borrowing it from Midoriya, but if it gets broken I'm scared what hell I'll be subjected to. Tokoyami said. Observation room. Vlad was watching the screens with Izuku fading in and out. So the rest of 1B passed. Izuku started. Don't talk to me, maggot. Vlad said. Take that bass out your voice, jarhead. Izuku said. I think you need to stop and remember this isn't military school. And you need to respect your elders. And you need to realize the difference between disrespect and stating a fact. Izuku said, Your students are terrified of you and have a ton of problems I only see from the brief interactions I've had. And what exactly do you know about my class? Vlad asked. I know Kendo got her first gray hair being the only one to take the job as class representative because she's the only one that doesn't stay awake at night fearing for getting kicked. Izuku said, Shinso, Pony, Tetsu, I saw issues you weren't taking into account. Minoma is blatantly dragging your class's interactions with other people down. Kendo has to keep him on a leash. I'm sorry if 1A has skin as thin as graphene. Vlad said, Believe me, sir, I've put up with enough HT in my life that fighting your friends is not a good idea. Izuku said, If you can't dash, can't isn't the issue. Both classes have some insecurities and chips on their shoulders. Those chips eventually become an entire roof. Izuku said, getting up, I suggest you ask Present Mike about Pony and Aizawa about Shinso. Jarvis, you mind? Izuku asked. Autopilot en route. Vlad watched the student level and went back to observing. Katsumi, get out the way, half and half, that one's mine. But you're the one that should be fighting Aizawa. Shoko said. Katsumi was way more in physical strength than anyone in the group. Both of you need to cut it out and dash. The spinning of the shoulder cannon had been the last thing they heard as they were pelted with slam rounds. Shoko was thrown back from the machine gun and Katsumi was kicked back. Shoko was thrown back from the machine gun and Katsumi was kicked back. Momo was hiding as best she could. Okay, remember the formulas, Momo. She thought as she was popping out supplies, but suddenly her quirk turned off. You're a little far from the group, hero. Aizawa said. Momo yelped as she was scrambling for the supplies. Mina, okay, let's try your thing. Mina said. Denki looked so nervous. He never used his overcharge with his Augs. The electricity flowed through every limb. It started running off his body. His hair standing on end. Hey, I'm doing it. Denki said, running ahead of Mina. More traps activated and Denki dove forward. Hugo Denki. Mina said, following close behind. Hugo Denki. Mina said, following close behind. It was going well until a wall shifted and Denki came to a full stop. Mina crashed into him and a burst of lightning had been seen striking the clouds. Instead of the painful shock she expected, Mina started to feel like she was hopped up on 12 cups of coffee. Holy, I feel awesome. Mina shouted. Holy, I feel awesome. Mina shouted, ouch. Denki said as he just fell forward. His head smoking and his body stopped, but he could think clearly. The whole maze is shut down. Mina had grabbed him and started running. Hug the right wall. Denki said, remembering what they learned from Midoriya. Plus Mina had been shaking so much from the energy in her she hadn't realized how much they had gotten through the maze. She had dropped Denki until she passed out behind the finish line. Land of the Olympians weren't gods, the Olympians weren't gods. They had power. They gained it from worship, but they weren't the ones that Earth was born to. The things they claimed as their doing were all lies to give themselves power. But only the primordial knew the truth. Humanity didn't have gods. There was only one creature that came close to that title, and his body was nailed to a piece of wood 200,000 years ago. When the great purifications happened, Gaia was one of the few that remained. To watch the humans re-evolve. And unfortunately knew a really terrifying truth. Humans were not humans. From beyond the earth was a portal that opened long ago. Otis. Slain foes from what she had found another pantheon who played God. But not intentionally. The Asgardians did it not for power but just so the humans wouldn't interfere with them. In the deepest pit of earth. Mariana Trench to the humans, but to the primordial goddess was where every corpse was. Millennia of randomly getting massive things thrown into her without a care. The slamming making it deeper and deeper. A corpse pile of trillions all melted into a fluid. A strange being known as the librarian had appeared 100,000 years ago. Again to melt the rotting flesh of the soul-less husks that remained of every living thing. However, unlike 200,000 years ago, she seemed to run out of whatever it was. She seemed tired. So a swarm of constructs floated and funneled it into a hole and just dumped an acid solution in. Then Gaia started an ice age. The deepest pit was far from the grasp of the liquid. When the ice thawed, the flesh of a galaxy was melted into a single paste. And then the water mixed with the life goo as life began evolving. Only this time, instead of champions with God's blessings, the entire race had the powers only gods had in the 2 previous eras. Gaia had usually rather sleep and lay around in the void floating. But then she one day got a strange toy. It was just so fun. And she never seen such a thing before. Occasionally metal flies were surrounding her, but she eventually learned to stop swatting them and they wouldn't crash into her. Speaking of weird metal things, Gaia had noticed something on Moon, her faithful wolf. It was digging into her fur. Cleaning the dander she could never seem to clean out. Cleaning the dander she could never seem to clean out too. She had entered Olympus to see what this hoop was. Walking out her home in the astral plane in the earth, she looked towards the motion that held Olympus in place, ensuring the realm of the gods didn't drift into the sun. The MT is in the astral plane, so that's why humans can't just see it. The MT is in the astral plane, so that's why humans can't just see it. You know, in God of War 4 how Kratos has to flip Tyr's temple so it appears. Same rules apply. The 𝗓𝗵𝗵 was something she often did. It felt nice walking somewhere not on her own body. Looking out, she could see beyond Olympus. Just where her atmosphere ended was a line. Looking out, she could see beyond Olympus. Just where her atmosphere ended was a line. Looking out, she could see beyond Olympus. Just where her atmosphere ended was a line. Do you know what this is? A voice asked. No, Hera, I don't. Gaia said, not looking at the Queen of the Olympians. Gaia said, not looking at the Queen of the Olympians. Hephaestus can't tell, and it's out of reach. Tara said, is this a sign? Another voice said, is this a sign? Another voice said. Gaia ignored the question. Honestly, she'd noticed a shift in her attitude. Her oil was all drained and she finally felt it. She felt like she did before anyone had shown up. She felt like she was in her arcane era again. She felt like she was in her arcane era again. Gaia, quit ignoring me. Gaia just kept spinning her hoop. Gaia, you're changing. Had this GIF saved for I think 2 years, finally get to add it. I am the king of Olympus, don't ignore me, woman. Zeus shouted. The rest of the remaining Olympians had started gathering. Gaia has begun to shrink. What does this mean? Athena asked. Gaia looked up. Her father was just behind the giant ring. It means the Olympians are officially dying. Gaia smirked. About time, really. You lot were really annoying, honestly. Who is attacking? Ares said. Oh, no one. Gaia said as her form shifted. Primordials had 2 forms. The astral and the material. Gaia material was originally a mutant and her astral form a human tree hybrid. By the Titan's tips. Poseidon shouted. Hey! Zeus said before getting elbowed by Hera. Zeus said before getting elbowed by Hera. Well, this is definitely interesting. Gaia said as she was looking at herself through a mirror Aphrodite had. I demand to know why you look like this. Zeus shouted. Because you aren't the ones to govern my form. Gaia said, you call me Gaia, the Africas call me Nokomis, to the average human I am Mother Earth, the Incans call me Pachamama, to the ones your current foe call me Terra Mater. But Terra Zeus started. All me. Unlike you all, I'm not sucking for shreds of power you once held. I am over 4.5 billion years old. I am the very earth your mutant rests on. I am a primordial. I am Midgard. I am 𝗧𝗏. Her voice changed. 𝗧𝗏. Her voice changed. The hoop began floating on its own around her waist. The new garments had a symbol on it. Stark Industries. Gaia looked up and saw something leaving her hair. Zeus rushed to the side of the motion and looked to see something flying. What is this? Zeus shouted. Oh, that's the human that sent the comb to Moon. Gaia said. That's a human. Zeus asked, well, time to handle this the old-fashioned way. The red speck did not even flinch or break its flight as it approached. The red speck did not even flinch or break its flight as it approached. More and more bolts, all only seeming to increase the thing's speed. Bursting through the cloud layer, they heard it speaking. Power at 200%, sir. Who? As the human left, Zeus has charged another bolt, but they were beyond range. 𝗓𝗵𝗵. Zeus shouted. He turned to Gaia and was reaching for the ring but couldn't touch it. Is this a bad time? And who the F are you? And who the F are you? You don't recognize me. I've been whipping Apollo every day. She said. Apollo said, I believe you all haven't been introduced. This is the primordial sun goddess. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said, Hes, or as my new name, Sol. She said, Helios, that's an Egyptian god, right? That's an Egyptian god, right? I was. But I grew out of it. She said, now light bright, get your butt back to work. Stark Industries a few weeks earlier, your 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐫 good perfect. Pulling the vehicle into the Pelican. Glad we got it done in time for the island trip. May said. Still don't get why we couldn't bring the other one. Katsumi said. Because this is May's hydrogen engine, mine is pure arc fusion. Because this is May's hydrogen engine, mine is pure arc fusion. Also they have about a 250K price difference. Why is it that expensive? Katsumi asked, isn't your company about cheap but quality? Because rich BSTRDS are gonna wanna flex somehow. Izuku said. Papa already has one ordered. Momo said, also he'll be watching the presentation. Mama also invited your parents over. Everyone packed. Izuku asked. A confirmation from the group had Izuku going back to running his checklist. I would ask how you'd get through the airport, but of course the nerd thought of that. Katsumi said. I'm sorry, aren't you a straight A student? Ochako asked, and has to be in bed before 8 or she gets grumpy. I think someone isn't the only nearly one here. Momo said. Seems like you fit right in. May said. Shut up. One of us. They chanted, one of us. Wanted to use this since it's blushing, but she isn't a Nico. You know we could get her a cute pair of glasses. Momo said. Izuku put a hand on her head. If you want a pair of smart glasses, I can get you a set. Katsumi pouted. Yes, I want a pair. Law, I'm gonna need your help again. Someone said into a phone. On my way. What now? Trafalgar D. What now? Trafalgar D. Waterlaw, greatest surgeon in the world, asked after getting to the room. Remember that bioreactor prototype you installed? The one your dad's paying me to not get out of quirk range of you. No, never heard of it. Law said sarcastically. Well, I think I need to work on it again. The 21-year-old said, the exhaust line isn't draining properly, so I'm teach PPD. Oh, that one hurt. Law rolled his eyes and just walked to a mini fridge. Reaching in as the blonde was ripping but across the room to pull out a human stomach inside what looked like a glass box. A different cube seemed to phase out of the girl's stomach with what appeared to be the same organ but made of metal. A different cube seemed to phase out of the girl's stomach with what appeared to be the same organ but made of metal. The organic stomach was replaced, and the girl let out a sigh of relief. Okay, let's see. Law had watched the girl work on the fake organ while thinking back on his days working for the black market. Pirates, he liked to call what him and his colleagues did. His quirk was used to steal from Chinese organ farms or just from random people. Whoever the rich BSTRDS who had the scratch. He went legit after a run-in with some powerful people, and for the last 20 years he was the best surgeon without a day of med school. When S.H.I.E.L.D. had called him when his daughter needed something, he had unknowingly just begun his old life with the backing of support gear. Jesus. There's the issue. She said. Why don't you just make it so you run on batteries? Law said. Or a access panel on your chest so you don't need me around every time your tummy hurts. 1, because I need my butt, and 2, because a panel would require more work on my skeleton, which I need to get this part done. She said. But the human intestinal tract can handle not having a stomach. She seemed to zone out for a second, a tear forming in her eye but quickly shaking her head. This has to be done. Law looked at a shelf with an old picture. God damn it, she looks so different. Fixed. She said. After her bowels were floated out, the implant was connected and everything was put back in. She grabbed a bottle from her nightstand. You know you can get regular limbs. These can feel. She said, taking the neuropozyne. You need to get out and make some friends. Law said. Don't see the point. There are plenty of people like you to interact with. Law said. I'm sure there are plenty like you. There's no one like me, except me. Melissa Shields said. Whatever, it's your life you're wasting. Law said, turning to leave. Well, since I wasn't expected to live to my teen years, I'm doing pretty good, she said. Law shook his head, walking out. Today, December 8th, damn in guys, I wasn't expecting this. Anyway, I wanted to write this as maybe a Tales from the Cutting Room Floor kind of thing, but didn't think people would read it as a stand-alone story, so it's going here. Please, anyone with more brain power to devote to these ideas, please do. The devil's problem with Izuku: when 𝗓𝗵𝗲 had first gotten the notification of being summoned, he had did it out of boredom. Holy 𝐻𝗫, it worked. A pink girl with horns said. Definitely didn't look like one of mine. Definitely didn't look like one of mine. Hello, children. Lucifer looked around at the setup. Candles, properly drawn circles, ew. He pointed at the green-haired one. Hello, Morning Star. Izuku said. You know each other. The rest shouted. Know him. He kept bugging me for the better half of his childhood. Lucifer said, his grin distorting into a frown. I told you. No demon powers. And it's Magna. I told them not to. The quirkless boy said. The spiky blonde asked. You see, children, this young man had come to me about 12 years ago. He had kept calling me a sking, begging, pleading for a quirk. You summoned the devil. Yep. Izuku said, remember that priest back in Aldine? No. But Kogu said. You see, Mr. Midoriya here had been told quirkless don't get into heaven. Lucifer said, complete bullshit, but nonetheless it was enough for our broccoli-haired good boy to actually attempt to call me the king of the damned. Wait, did you give him powers? No. Lucifer said, do you have any idea how much that would set me back? Set you back? Ida asked. My last few plans to increase the world's sin has failed. Lucifer said, I can't afford Jolly Green here pushing my plans back. How could Deku even dash? Lucifer summoned a chart with a bunch of crossed-out plans. Make the Catholic Church homophobic. Make it so priests can't marry. Making Hitler hate the Jews. Failed. You see, all this 𝗧𝗃. All the 𝗧𝗃 quirks have thrown a monkey wrench into. If I gave this prick even an ash of my power, he'd ruin my work. So F you freckle-faced 𝗧𝗃. With the tip of his hat, the candles, the pentagram, and everything to summon him was gone. Return by death, go to recovery girl. Aizawa pointed towards the school. Izuku looked devastated, the looks of smugness on Bakugu's face and the pity of the class. The only one to stop him was Ochako. Izuku was ashamed he couldn't do it. Even when he put it into just his finger, it wasn't enough. Remembering how All Might gave him the quirk, he bit the inside of his cheek. I hope BLD works just as good as hair. His first kiss. Her first kiss. His last. Thanks for being nice to me. Izuku hadn't stopped by recovery girl. He was headed for the roof. He was finally done. Ochako later watched Izuku swan dive off the roof. Crying over his dying body, she watched the life fade from his eyes, but then felt her lips being pressed. It was back on the field. She was in her gym uniform. Izuku was alive. Thanks for being nice to me, he said again. Deja vu. Ochako had listened to Aizawa talk to the class again. The blonde one mocking the green-haired boy again. When Ochako was out of her frozen state, she had been too late to stop him. Thanks for being nice to M-. Don't you dare. Ochako shouted, her arms going tense and her limbs shooting off her body. As the BLD was pooling, she felt herself get kissed again. Thanks for dash. Ochako grabbed him and wouldn't let go. You stopped, don't jump. What? You were gonna. Water built up in Ochako's eyes. You remember it? Izuku asked. Remember you splattering on the sidewalk? Ochako said. Wait, you got dash slap? Thanks for being. He stopped this time. The two just realized what Izuku's so-called non-existent quirk was. Return by death. And Ochako just got it with one for all. Fight back bullshit. Izuku said. Pardon? Aizawa asked. I know I did better than at least the bottom 5. Izuku said. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. Really? Yeah. You 6 are gonna repeat the performance. If Midoriya wins, you 5 all get booted. If any of you win, only he goes. Fine by me. Izuku wins, and on the way out the five all are meeting him at the gate. You should be kicked, not us. The world needs heroes. Kill yourself. Izuku smirks and chuckles. Mikajiro is called into the school the following day. Bakugo, Mineta, Toru, Siro, Denki and all their parents were waiting in the meeting room. A video. Something that looked like body cam footage. 𝗓𝗪𝐿, you are in so much trouble. Brat, you're grounded until you die. There's no way that's real. Bakugo tried to deny it, but a hard drive was held up by Nizu. This contains the last year and a half of Aldine's security cameras. Any records dating further shows clean records, but these all are raw footage. Nizu said, your teachers were doctoring records. Both Minoru and Katsuki have prior history of quite frankly criminals charges. Jairu saw the narrow eyes of the boy. She realized she wasn't the first person to say that, and unlike with the blonde boy, he had officially run out of F to give about others. The final kick in the teeth was he was wearing a 𝗧𝗵𝗲 band t-shirt. Of her first concerts with her parents as a fill-in drummer. She had just lost not only her spot in the school but a fan too. Computer repair Shigaraki had just gotten a new PC and needed help. Since he would be busy with the USJ attack, he called someone to work on it. Cut to a green-haired boy in a uniform. He had jumped back. The look the white-haired young adult gave his guardian said the same thing. What the F? So what's the issue? Green asked. He got a new PC and they sent it in pieces. Shigaraki said. Shigaraki watched the hero wannabe put together everything in no time. Okay, it's all set up. Green said, if you're upgrading screens, the X345Y is the better option. Also, if you want a RGB keyboard, I suggest the Pro 7, not the Ultra 5. My company says push the Ultra 5, but the Pro is the same SHT with a lifetime warranty. Also, I noticed your mouse was kinda decayed, so I suggest finger tape to prevent a 5-point contact for your quirk. How do you know my quirk? I mean, he held up the mouse, kinda obvious unless you're cooking meth. Which I highly advise not doing near a webcam. Right. Kurogiri said. Also that skin issue. There's a cream called Eversmooth. The drag store sells the same SHT for 1/10 of the price. Fast forward to Bakugo being kidnapped and having to be hidden because the villain's Wi-Fi isn't working right. And now it's a mess of them trying to keep Izuku away from Bakugo. Dabi keeps getting asked about his quirk and Himiko keeps trying to set up porno scenarios about banging the IT guy. And Izuku had no idea what is happening. It isn't me, but I think I'd be in more trouble if I tell you exactly what I was doing. No, I haven't been giving information to the villains. Truth. Have you come in contact with anyone from the League of Villains? Shigaraki at the mall, but other than the times at camp. Truth. Half-truth. What are you not telling us? Aizawa asked coldly. Does anyone have my phone? Izuku asked. Yeah. I'll show you, but please just read the whole thing. After Izuku unlocked it, it was handed to the police chief. Look under Vampire FB. Read the backlog. Izuku said. Head down in shame. No embarrassment. Wait. The police chief was looking more and more shocked. Aizawa took the phone and read them. Oh, I need eye bleach. Aizawa said. What is it? The detective asked. Pawn. A lot of pictures with 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏. Aizawa said, grabbing the flask out of the police chief's hand, knocking it back before it was taken back. I've been dating Himiko for I'd say 3 months now. True. When did this truly first start? She found me after the stain incident. She had watched the news, and apparently when she learned I was responsible for it, she already had a crush on me from the sports festival. Truth. But I swear we don't talk about anything about UA. Izuku said, we have a rule that if it's ever brought up either about the league or UA, the ball gauge is dash. Truth. The detective said. Midoriya, are you seriously not able to get anyone from the school? Hell, I'd rather you be dating Melissa. All Might said. Well, actually, Izuku started. Okay, Midoriya, just though many people have you slept with? Aizawa asked. I think 20 different, but at least 10 of them have called for another round. Izuku said. Is this serious what you've been hiding? We've had you in that cell for a week. Aizawa said. I recently found out my dad 𝗧𝗵𝗲 𝗔𝗂𝗁 was sterile. Izuku said. Please don't tell me you're his kid. All Might begged. I'm not, Izuku said. I'm actually Eri's half-brother. Apparently my Uncle Kai changed his last name and faked his death because Overhaul is my biological father who donated since Dad was shooting blanks. Truth. Aizawa was slamming his head into the wall. Is that all? Yes. False. What now? Izuku and 𝗂𝗧𝗃. 𝗂𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗃 wake up. Izuku entered the boys' room. What? Come on, I want to show you something. It's the middle of the night. Come on. Izuku said, grabbing his ankle. Two had to make a bomb, 𝗂𝗧. Izuku said. The bomb. I had to 𝗂𝗧. Drop it, Ama, make a whole new start. Izuku said as they flew over Japan. What? Wipe the slate. But first we'll pick up Eri. I don't want you to be alone. Eri? 𝗂𝗧 asked. Gonna create a whole new world, 𝗂𝗧. Adam and Eve. You're gonna be Adam and Eri will be Eve. Eri was picked up in the ship. Izuku was passed out. Neutrino bomb armed. The ship said. 𝗂𝗧 had jumped to hug Eri. Eri, I've had a crush on you since we were kids. Me too, 𝗂𝗧. Eri shouted. The bomb had been rewound to before it was even armed. The bomb had been rewound to before it was even armed. So Anna catch a move later? 𝗂𝗧 asked. Sereno action movies. Eri said. You did it, buddy. Izuku said. Eri, I am pro-belch proud you got it. Oh, this was a test. Yiwa. Izuku drunkenly leaned on the bomb and a click was heard. They all looked at one another. Into the car. Into the car. 𝗧𝗔, Izuku said, looking around the now leveled planet. And undamaged car. Izuku rolled his eyes and reached into his jacket. Let's go. Izuku said, dropping the object on the ground. The raw earth warped around the orb as the three flew out of the atmosphere. What the F is going on? Eri shouted. I put a spatial void inside a temporal field until life formed inside. Izuku explained, when I uplifted them into their space age, they build Dyson spheres which I use to charge my phone or run the car. Space program. Izuku gets picked for the first extended space trip. Either he has a quirk that would be beneficial to this, he's quirkless so they don't have to worry about any incidents, or the government have a Spartan program and he was 6 when he was first enlisted to join the mission. Green energy versus oil. Oh, it appears someone is getting a little confident. The black 𝗵𝗲 said with her heel digging into 𝗧𝗪chan's cracked chest. Guess you need a friendly reminder who runs the world. A cane tapped on the ground as someone walked in. Hello, Oil-sama, it's been a while. 𝗵𝗃chan said, heard you've been getting a little dry. Heard you're still decaying in Chernobyl. Cute, how's that trip in the ocean? 𝗵𝗃chan asked, leaning on her cane. 82,000 birds of 102 species, about 6,165 sea turtles, as many as 25,900 marine mammals, and a vast number of fish dead because of you. Oh, you want to play numbers? 90,000 and 146,000 people in Hiroshima alone. Oil said, so don't act all innocent. True, but I'm not as gassed up as you or this one. Gesturing to an unconscious 𝐔𝐬, that joke was so pathetic I forgot to laugh. Oil said, speaking of pathetic, how's that sister of yours? Oh, you can ask her yourself. 𝗵𝗃chan said. Hey. 𝗵𝗃chan said, smiling. Hey. 𝗵𝗃chan said, smiling. I'd thought you'd be bigger. Oil said. I've started dieting actually. 𝗵𝗃chan said, gotta get CC for my ceremony. What ceremony? My crowning, of course. 𝗵𝗃chan said, gotta make sure everything is perfect. Scrubbing your skid marks off my throne is a must. Oh wait, that's just your crud. Why, but I am the thing the world runs on, little girl. Oil said, stepping over 𝗧𝗪chan, the world uses me for everything, and when I'm gone the world with no me and the big load of plastic from me, F the world over. 1. You 4 along with the whole of humanity lost. I'm gonna laugh as my final moments are filled with humanity shitting itself. Oil said. We will win. 𝗧𝗪 coughed out. Oil turned and bent over. And why do you plan to do that? Tell me how you think you'll win. I won't, 𝗧𝗪 said, but here's a little fact. Solar is nothing but ranged fusion. Big deal. Oil said, tapping 𝗧𝗪's face mockingly. The sun releases energy at a mass-energy conversion rate of 4.26 million metric tons per second, which produces the equivalent of 38,460 septillion watts 3.846 by 1026 W per second. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, leaning on her rod and looking up. Quit pretending either of you have a chance. Oil said, you're critical but failed to defeat me once before and you'll fail again. You think I'm out of tricks? Fusion said, raising 𝐒𝐭𝐻 above her head. Her eyes glowing brighter as her critical mass ultra kicked in. Oil rolled her eyes, but something hit her in the back. What is this? Oil asked. What is this? Oil asked. This is fusion. The youngest of the group said, putting a hand to her now armored chest. Clean, safe arc fusion. 𝐒𝐽. Oil boomed as fire erupted around them. A shield formed from arc reactor Chan. Oil was stopped cold. 3 gigajoule a second. 1 gigajoule of natural gas is approximately equivalent to 27 liters of fuel oil, 39 liters of propane, 26 liters of gasoline. My fat but weighs around 800 tons. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 said, hypermass swing. Batting oil across the room. What? Oil said, coughing out the black sludge. Repulsor rockets. Fusion said, standing over the black hintus. Safe enough they can't ignite gasoline. Your roaring dragon inferno is useless. Oil-sama tried to ignite but was blasted. You think you're any different from your pathetic sister? Oil-sama asked. You think you're any different from your pathetic sister? Oil-sama asked. Actually I am. Critical mass mega bomb / big F repulsor gun. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 and arc reactor Chan shouted as their ultimate attacks were charged up. Critical mass mega bomb / big F repulsor gun. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 and arc reactor Chan shouted as their ultimate attacks were charged up. Nu! Oil-sama shouted as all she saw was a bright light. Island landing. David's shield met the group. Toshi, you're looking better. David said, going for a handshake but was pulled into a hug. Good seeing you, man. Toshinori said, this is the one I told you about. Izuku Midoriya, right? David asked. Yes, sir. Izuku said, we brought the stuff for the expo. Hi, Mr. Shield, I'm 𝗵𝗃𝗁 of 𝗵𝗃𝗁 Incorporated, specializing in support gear and general machinery. May said, nice to meet eager people with an interest in the field. David said, so where do we bring our projects? Izuku asked. Oh right, please bring whatever to Shield Industries building so it can be inspected. David said. Shotgun. Katsumi shouted. Shotgun. David asked, watching as the Pelican ramp lowered. What is that? Introducing 𝗵𝗃𝗁 Incorporated M12 Warthog. May said, this is for the Green Energy Convention. David asked. Pop the hood. May said. 12, 0-liter. Liquid cooled hydrogen injected IC. May started. David listened. May explain it was a water-powered car. Wait, so it can separate and condense hydrogen from water with 0 emissions. David asked. Yes, sir. May said. David blinked. Turned to Izuku and asked, and what did you make? A particle accelerator to make solar panels. Okay, let's discuss this back at the lab. David said. I'm driving. Izuku said. Shield Labs, drives pretty smooth. David said. Just remember to turn using the handbrake. Izuku said. The M12 Warthog has a top speed of 125 km per hour, 78 miles per hour, and its hydrogen tanks can power a maximum range of 790 km, 490 miles. May said each wheel contains an independent wheel motor charged by the engine, so when the main engine runs out it has another 500 miles worth of charge. This thing is a hybrid. One of the scientists David called over to help examine in. May just stood there grinning. Also, the Warthog can collect water from the surrounding area when not in use. May said, Arctic variants are currently being designed to melt snow for increased fuel. Salt water yet to be tested. And what have you made? One of the scientists asked, looking to Izuku. A particle accelerator to make solar panels. Izuku said, Really? One asked. And what exactly does a particle accelerator run on? One sarcastically asked. On the 20 nuclear reactors currently in my facility. Izuku said, Yeah, that would do it. David said, Well, let's hear how it's done. The lead scientist said, sitting down dramatically. Solar panels start out as big silicon crystals, then are trimmed, then sliced into 15mm wafers. Izuku started, the crystal needs to be sawed, not cut, so there's a lot of wasted parts. Now what if we could use the entire crystal? The protons are shot into the crystal and we just pop off the new wafer. Perfectly cut with no waste product. Izuku said, I just gained 50% of the crystal for use. Let's take it even further. This method allows me to make wafers 0.03 mm thin without breaking them. Say a single crystal makes 1,000 wafers with current methods. I've just doubled the output. 15 divided by 0.003 equals 50. Now if we can make 2,000 of the 15mm wafers, we can get 50 times our output, making 0.003 mm thin wafers. 50 times our 2,000. A single crystal would produce 100,000 wafers. I've just 100-fold my output and I haven't had to spend a single yen more. That's impressive. That sounds like it will work on paper, but stop interrupting him. Katsumi shouted. Now what if we take those and instead of steel or aluminum frames, say we glue the proto-wafers to a flexible material before it's popped off, then heated, it can make much lighter panels. Or using something like graphene, flexible solar cells. David said, holding the one Izuku brought. That cell costs about $20 total to produce. Izuku said, pointing to it. How much is the warthog? A warthog in lore is about CR 52,000 in Halo lore. Let's calculate that by equivalence. A burger combo is advertised as CR7, a burger combo is advertised as CR7. 77. Now using a McDonald's quarter pounder with cheese meal, that is $5.79 US. So 77 divided by 5.79 is equal to 1.3419689119, so one Halo credit is around $1.34. But let's not forget inflation exists, but also Halo had years of peace to make things cheaper, so a warthog stock would probably be in the 50K or maybe 40K. But using our number, 1.34 times 52,000 is equal to 69,680 USD. However, let's look at this price. All warthogs are built using a factory on Mars. There is no human LBR, and titanium is so abundant that the UNSC Infinity and UNSC Eternity could be built and not collapse Earth economy, so it isn't material cost. It's shipping and handling. The industry average cost to ship a car with an auto transport company is upwards of $2.00 per mile for journeys less than 200 miles. How much does it cost to transport a car overseas? The exact amount that it will cost you to transport a car overseas depends on how far your car is going to be traveling and the company that you hire to do the job. In general though, expect to spend about $1,000 to $2,000 to ship one car to another country. But warthogs aren't shipped overseas, they're shipped in space. Mars is 229.35 million miles from Earth currently, and the minimum distance from Earth to Mars is about 33.9 million miles. Using the domestic shipping of $2.00 USD per mile times 229.35 million times 229.500,000 equals 459,000,000 USD on just shipping. The average cost to ship a car within the continental United States is $950. The highest average price is $1,200. And the lowest average price is $700. The per mile average for moving a car is $0.60 per mile for trips of 1,000 miles or more. 60 times 229,500,000 is equal to 137,700,000 USD just to get a warthog from Mars to Earth. But reaches 10.5 light-years away. World cuisine is a restaurant on reach, so using out math. Ly equals 5,878,625,370,000 miles. 173 by 1,013 miles equals 61,725,566,385,000 miles. 725, 566, 385, 000 times 0. 60 is equal to 37,035,339,831,000 USD, so using an inflation calculator $1 in 1921 is worth $15.45 US. That's 100 years of inflation. Halo takes place 500 years in the future. So that shipping is probably a lot lower than we can guess. So sorry, I feel ashamed I can't math this more, but just for sake of math, a Halo credit is worth $1.34 US. Or you could make it so world cuisine is like Five Guys. $8.95 for a regular burger, $5.15 for regular fries, and $2.59 for a regular soda. $16.69 for a single meal. So one credit is 47 cents. If you use the new numbers 52,000 times for a warthog, the Wrangler's base trim carries an MSRP of $28,475 for the two-door body style and $31,975 for the four-door unlimited body style. We're selling the first batch for 30 grand. May said, but more factories could lower cost in the future. David just turned to the rest of the group. And you three? Oh no, I'm just a shareholder in Stark Industries. 𝗓𝗏 said. I'm his toolbox. Momo said, pointing to Izuku. I'm just here. Katsumi said. Speaking of here, where's my goddaughter? Toshinori asked. Melissa was showing the company distributing her artificial organs the new stomach and discussing the cost of the new stomach. Melissa was showing the company distributing her artificial organs the new stomach and discussing the cost of the new stomach. We can easily charge 200 grand for one. Melissa said. Melissa, you genius. The union rep said, clapping his hands. Her HUD had blinked. Message Uncle Toshi, I am here on the island. Oh, my godfather is here. This meeting is over anyway. The union rep said. Later, so anything I need to know about your goddaughter? Izuku asked. Oh, she's amazing. Kinda a biased statement. Izuku said. Well, she is just like her dad. All Might said. Uncle Toshi. A shout was heard. Uncle Toshi. A shout was heard. Melissa. You're looking better. Melissa said. Even better than before. All Might said, lifting her up. New arms. Carbon fiber. Melissa said. I'd have gone with Bucky paper, honestly. Izuku said. Profiler, unknown social media presence. Who's this? Melissa said. A friend of your uncle. Izuku said. The two looked at one another. Name, Melissa. Shield. Age, 21. Medical tags. Quadruple amputee, artificial heart replacement. Scan indicates 14 different augmentations. All Might was quiet as Melissa seemed to be scanning Izuku. Nice jacket. Melissa said. Cute eyes. Izuku said. Melissa, this is one of my students. Toshinori said. Izuku, this is my goddaughter Melissa. Shield. Unknown signal detected. Melissa was trying to check who it was and only heard. Are these hit logistics? No, they are dash. You're in the wrong house, fool. Melissa started screaming. Melissa arms burst at the seams. What's happening? All Might asked, reaching for Melissa. Jarvis's anti-hack protocol is to detonate the source. It's supposed to drain bank accounts of those scam call centers. Izuku said, we need to get her to an operating table. Melissa was unconscious. Strange, I need you to grab something from my lab and get your butt to Island. Izuku shouted, dust is the plan. What makes a man? If you had to put a number on what a human being is, what would you say? Billion. That is the only thing that is you. 86 billion cells in a human brain. 37. 2 trillion cells make up a full body. There are 432. 6 times the amount of cells that just exist to keep the ones that are reading this alive. Cells dies and are replaced. Without it. Single F given. 200 billion trillion stars exist in the universe. 𝐒𝐵𝗵𝐺0555-57 is the smallest and it's the size of Saturn. 1,000 million stars make up 𝗵𝗲 stars. Funny really that number. There are just as many cells dying in your body as there are stars. Trillion atoms make up a single cell. The fact we are so big we can't even see them with the naked eye is glorious. Your cells make cells. It is the 𝗕𝗏 natural process to make molecules. Each star holds planets just as each cell holds an ecosystem in itself. If you want to prove God exists, there's your proof. She's holding us right now. The Milky Way galaxy is the mother with Earth acting as one of her egg cells. Waiting to 𝐒𝐻 a galactic civilization. Now look at your bone marrow. Each cell specializes to make more. I talk to them, they talk to each other. I talk to them, they talk to each other. Your stomach tells you when it's hungry. Your mouth tells you when you're thirsty. Your body knows itself and its needs. It repairs damage. BLD carries the oxygen that powers each cell. Why can't we make machines act the same? Each light a star surrounded by rocks. Why can't we make machines act the same? Each light a star surrounded by rocks. Why can't we make machines act the same? Each light a star surrounded by rocks. A living universe. That is what everything is. From the smallest insect to the largest whale to 𝗵𝗲 herself uses the same method. I didn't invent anything Mother Nature hasn't already nailed since we started as multicellular organism. Shield Industries Medical Bay. Melissa had opened her eyes. She was floating. Looking around, she saw her body laying on a table. Looking around, she saw her body laying on a table. Hello, Miss Shield, my name is Stephen Strange. Someone said. What is going on? You are currently in surgery to repair your augmentations. Strange said, your soul is being astral projected out so I may discuss your augmentations. Hey, why is he here? Melissa shouted as Izuku was going over a diagram. You are getting Stark Industries implants. Strange said, he was the one who created the nano repeaters. Micro repeaters? Melissa asked. Your existing muscle is implanted with a series of chips that will create a digital skeleton for the augmentations to follow as if it were a standard arm. Your existing muscle is implanted with a series of chips that will create a digital skeleton for the augmentations to follow as if it were a standard arm. But I need my weapons, Melissa said. You can install your loadout yourself once the base limbs are added. With this you can essentially plug and play your limbs without the need of an on-site physician. Strange said, also your existing connectors are already out. Why would they use something that would rust in a human body? SHT Design and Construction. Izuku said. My company, Melissa started, only uses the best for its organs. But this wasn't a serif install. Strange said, all your connections are not marked. Every company has a code for things so they can know who they are in and where they are. It's required so they can't get stolen by certain individuals. A glare towards Law, who was just being a nurse for the two to work without cutting her open. He looked over and didn't seem to hear Melissa. Hey, I haven't broken into China in over a year. Law said. You said you quit being a pirate 5 years ago. Izuku said. Just put all my SHT back and wake me up so I can get my own gear. Melissa said, I don't, even when he wasn't financially motivated to like others. Strange said. There's no way he could be handle my, is she insulting me? Green Boy asked. You're DMN right, I'm insulting you. Melissa swatted at Izuku but phased through him. They can't hear you. Strange said, do you the reason the union charges so much for this SHT? Because they got there first. What does an English dash, I'm from New York? Strange said, enough with the Benedict Cumberbatch jokes, I've heard it 1,000,000 times. I look strangely like him but I was born and raised in America. Melissa watched her nervous system get floated out and coated with something. Your entire nervous system is lined with "would you run it by me again?" The closest simplification is it's laminating your nervous system to act as fiber optic cable instead of running wires in the body. Supermyelinated sheaths are added to your entire nervous system. Izuku said, not looking up from his work, "Your brain chip is definitely useful for surface, but just wire it directly to the motor cortex instead of a surface scanner. Seriously, this is why the union needs to be burned to the ground." Melissa looked at the diagram on the projector. This was drawn on a notebook. Her brain had just got taken out and Strange had picked up the tools. Connect the couplings to the sections. Izuku said, "Careful, these things bind to organic tissue, so if you miss." "I won't miss," Strange said. Melissa watched, shaking as she watched her brain get wired. "Oh, now you're just showing off," Law said as Strange was getting to the final connections. "Alright, let's plug this in and check if the neural interface is working." "Wait, what?" Melissa watched the accident right there in 4K. The attack at the Island Expo 3 years ago. She was 18 at the time, hoping to become a support gear specialist, but then was dragged by Meta Liberation Army grunts and ripped apart. The looks of the two quirkless in the room had shown no external signs. Law was just shaking his head. Melissa was shouting at Strange to turn it the F off. "She says turn it off," Strange said. "When did she graduate high school?" "I was 16. Melissa said as her graduation was shown. "The day she lost her virginity?" Izuku asked. Law grabbed the remote and turned off the screen. "Really don't want to see that." "He is right, that was inappropriate," Strange said. "Just checking her body's connection. She could suddenly wake up with a foot FTSH or something if we aren't careful. Or Alzheimer's." "Gross," Melissa said. "Says the beach obsessed with her but and always bitching about them not using enough silicone to get it back to proper size." Law said. "You can hear me slash her." "No, but I've been glued to her for 2 years, so she probably said something." Law said, "She's flipping me off, right, isn't she?" "No, but she is doing something." Strange said. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲, all right, put in the secondary chip behind the backport." Izuku said, "It should act as a barrier against any attempts to get into her head." "All right, she looks good as new." Law said. "Not yet." Izuku said, "Install the spinal plate repeaters." "Who?" Melissa said, watching a new slide was brought up. "The spinal cord is coated and the vertebrae are replaced with a more durable materials. The spinal cord is coated and the vertebrae are replaced with a more durable materials. Each disc has a redundancy, so if main connection to any augmentations fail." Izuku said, "A secondary motor processor is added to the base of the spine to shorten time required for movement." Melissa blinked. "Okay, now she's ready." Izuku said as the final FU to her was when her bioreactor was replaced with a new one. "I used her old one as a base, but the material were complete SHT. Would have failed the second a lard, but who didn't know the meaning of portion sizes sat down to eat. The only people who would need this. When I get back in my body, you 𝐒𝐬𝐽, I'm gonna show you poor quality." "Your work is great, Miss Shield," Strange said, "but you're blinded by the greed. You're the second greatest surgeon in the world." Melissa said, "Of all the people who thinks money dash. You know why I'm so good at my job? Because I put in the effort." Strange said, "I have purposely miswritten patients just so they can get what they need without bankrupting them. I am a US brain surgeon and have pulled bullets out of gangsters' skulls in a city street with a pair of tweezers. That 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗔 cleans my yard now. I am the world's greatest surgeon and I've done it without what the majority of the world has. He hasn't spent a single day in med school." Strange face had said it all. Melissa knew the feeling. Competing with quirks and actually being good enough. Now your tissue is going to be regrown, so you will be up and walking around after you return to your body. Would you like your organic limbs back? F no. Melissa said, "I like my OGs. 86 the organic limbs." Strange said. "Music to my ears." Izuku said, pulling up another display which Melissa couldn't see from her current location. An injector gun was placed behind each of her connectors and she watched her body just reassemble around each connector. And the final touch. Izuku said as the last one was placed near her head. Melissa entered her body and everything went dark. Melissa room. The girl woke up to her phone alarm on her nightstand. When she reached over to turn it off, she looked and saw her arm. What? She was looking in the mirror. She was looking in the mirror. Her old body was back. "Dsminute," I said, "I wanted my 𝐒𝐽𝐽𝐲." Suddenly a light in the corner of her vision. She turned her head but then tried just using her eyes. She turned her head but then tried just using her eyes. "Hey, this isn't my HUD," Melissa said. As she was thinking about her 𝐒𝐽𝐽𝐲, a display appeared. "Hey, I haven't put these in yet. Hey, I haven't put these in yet." Melissa said, "Some don't even look familiar." Melissa looked and saw all the 𝗧𝗏𝐺𝐻𝗔 was there, but the new ones told her she had to be careful. Melissa looked and saw all the 𝗧𝗏𝐺𝗔 was there, but the new ones told her she had to be careful. Melissa looked at her hand and saw an energy bar at the corner of her vision reach 0. Wait, Melissa looked at her message. From undefined subject. Dat but added a few extras to the rig. "You were right to want that thing back. It's glorious. Thickness is richness. 𝐵 nanophase is undershielding." Melissa saw nanophase in her list and tapped off. Her blonde hair turned black and a liquid seemed to retract into her, revealing her new limbs. Her blonde hair turned black and a liquid seemed to retract into her, revealing her new limbs. Melissa tapped it and she turned back into her old self. Spending a few minutes staring at herself in the mirror. Each usage drained the power initially but didn't hinder the powers recharging. Melissa looked and saw all the old ports for her designs were there but not the 𝐒𝐽𝐽𝑜 itself. She had spent the morning reinstalling her upgrades and her alarm went off, so she was reaching for her new 𝗧𝗏𝗄 but a warning flashed: "Do not consume." Living room. Izuku was sitting with Momo, Mei, Toshinori and David talking when Melissa walked in. "Melissa," David started but the fluid retracted. "I have a few things to say." Melissa said, "I apologize for snooping in your system without permission. Thank you for maybe possibly sort of saving my life. Thank you for getting my dump truck into factory default and not doing the same to my limbs. It would go against my religion to let the world loosen but like that." Izuku said, "Anyway, my name is Melissa Shield. I am the founder of Seraph Industries and I would very much like to invite you to my lab." Melissa said, folding her hands. 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲, founder of General Atomics International. The pink-haired girl said, getting up and shaking her hand. "I thought it was 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵 Incorporated." Momo said more to herself, "I thought it was 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵 Incorporated." Momo said more to herself. Rebranding 𝐿. General Atomics for all your support gear and automaton needs. Mei said, "Since we're getting formal." Izuku Midoriya, founder and CEO or Stark Industries. Izuku said, "Momo Yaoyorozu of Yaoimo General." Momo said, she had started her own company due to urging from both Izuku, Mei and her parents. "Follow me," Melissa said. "You need to eat first, Melissa." David said, "I'll eat later," Melissa said. David said. Momo said, holding out what looked like a chocolate bar. Momo said, holding out what looked like a chocolate bar. Melissa opened the thin bar and ate it, shuddering as it went down. "Still can't get the taste down," Momo said, pulling a similar-looking one out. "Honestly, I'm kinda used to the first edition. Had to create a better-tasting one, because even the African tribes starving and being eaten by mosquitoes complain about it." Izuku said, "I've stopped every warlord from stealing parachute supply drops and every tribe has been given a water filtration device but insist I make a better-tasting solution to world hunger. Someone's but hurt." Melissa said, "The solution is lube and to chill out." Mei said, "If you think you're using enough, double it." Momo said, quoting Midnight, "Melissa lead them to her personal lab." Izuku's head, "So did it work?" "We're still here." Nana said, "So a blank one for all." Number one said, "Gotta admit it's a good idea if it works. Let's see what happens." Flashback. Steven was standing over Tensei Ida. "This thing looks like a hacksaw was taken to it." Strange said, "It was a serrated machete." The disembodied soul of the previous Turbo Hero said, "So after this I'll be walking again. You'll be running again." Strange said, "Right?" From the context I'm guessing he's asking if he'll be walking again. The answer is yes, but you're also here because I want to study how your engines connect to your tissue. It might be possible to convert it to repulsion instead of air. Maybe even add more. Why are you doing this for me? He asked why we do this. Because if I know how these work, I can improve your brother's engines. Izuku said, maybe even clone yours to add to 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏. This cannot be legal. Tensei was chopping his hand. I have a license to practice medicine. You said if the option was there you'd settle for being able to walk again. Strange said, how tested is this procedure? Tensei asked, this one in particular. None. Strange smiled, causing the ex-hero to freak out. Relax. He's got steady hands. Izuku said, he's panicking, right? Completely. Strange said, man, it is so much easier when anesthesia isn't an issue. And this room is cleaner than your standard operating room. Izuku added. Tensei watched the surgery. His body being taken apart, examined and put back together. When he awoke he had felt no pain. Moving his legs he felt no different than before the attack. Standing was not the shaking of a fawn standing for the first time, but as normal as getting out of a chair should be. My legs work, Tensei said, walking around. Elsewhere. Hey 𝗧𝗏, what do a red hand at a crosswalk and your brother not have in common? Izuku asked, pulling up the video call. Midoriya, that is highly. Hey Tenya? Tensei said. Brother, you can walk again. Tenya exclaimed. You're welcome. Izuku said. Wait, Midoriya dash. Izuku hung up. So Uncle Toshi, about your issue. Melissa said, brushing off Izuku. Oh, I wanted to tell you the good news. All Might said, wanna take this inside. Should he be here? Melissa asked, pretending Izuku was here. He's kinda involved. Toshinori said. Inside David's office, All Might pulled out a folder. David and Melissa shifted through it. Their faces getting more and more shocked. Toshi, David said, you said you were healed, but I am. And so much more. Toshinori said. Melissa looked at the diagram. Regrown lungs. Heart polymorph. Who did this? Melissa shouted as she slammed the folder down. Izuku smirked. Melissa said, how could you do this without the Union or Seraph Industries? The Union banned testing without clearance. Even in Japan. Except for quirkless people. Izuku said, of course it isn't testing when you know what you're doing. Melissa dash, All Might started. She had slapped his hand away and glared at Izuku. I will bring the entirety of the Union, Seraph Industries, and S.H.I.E.L.D. to put whatever company you have into atoms. Please, you think I'm afraid of a bunch of cowards that hide behind bribed politicians and corporate bullshit? Her arm opened partly and a fine blade constructed itself out of ceramics. Before she could take 2 steps, 2 blue beams destroyed the blade. She looked and saw her godfather and the one trying to bankrupt her. Both holding glowing gloves. Melissa S.H.I.E.L.D. David and All Might shouted. Uncle 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Melissa said as a new blade was formed. Melissa S.H.I.E.L.D., you will stand down right now. All Might bulked up. No, let her try. I want to see how cheap this beach is. If she's running Seraph, this is a fair fight. Ayaha! Melissa shouted, bursting forward. An uppercut from Izuku hit her hard enough to crack her latest implant, hit the same time as her nanoblade hitting him square on the temple. The blade had scalped Izuku, showing the black metal underneath, and Melissa had dropped from the burst of acid leaking in her bowels. Log it in here. S.H.I.E.L.D. shouted. Melissa watched Izuku put his scalp back on and holding up the now ripped-off arm. Silicon carbide. Interesting. Aluminum alloy. You couldn't score the titanium for a better skeleton. Izuku asked. What the F? Tungsten carbide bones and carbon nanotubes. Izuku smirked, flicking his jacket's collar. Melissa had tried to stand, but Izuku kicked her in the jaw. What's going on here? Law shouted, entering the room. When he saw Melissa on the floor, he activated surgery and the two were separated. I think the stomach is broke, Melissa said, clutching her midsection. Law floated out the stomach and did a temporary gastric bypass since her stomach was in her room at the moment. SHT dude, what the hell are you made of? Take a look. Izuku said, smirking. Izuku's heart and skeleton floated out. How did you? Melissa started, but David interrupted her. Young lady, you will sit there until we are done, David said as Melissa was nursing her severed stump. She'll be fine, just if she goes to eat take small bites, you don't have a stomach right now. Law said, lighting a cigarette. You shout be lucky he didn't put you in the dirt. The 𝐕 got double the muscle of a regular person. What is up with that arm? Izuku asked, looking at the stump. You're seriously using wires in an enclosed organic system. Melissa swatted at him as he was trying to get a closer look at her arm. That's 𝐕 Industries property, keep you filthy hands off it. Melissa said. This 𝐬𝐻T isn't worth a ham sandwich. Izuku said, waving the removed arm. That is a $1 billion pieces of equipment. Melissa growled. No, it's about $50 of materials. Izuku said, gesturing to the arm. His phone was pulled out and pulled up a diagram. This right here, baby girl, is worth the $500 million the union overcharges, and I sell them for $500 with a lifetime warranty. Izuku held up his phone. You piece of it, Melissa shouted, jumping out her seat and this time being grabbed by Izuku, and her leg was stomped. Midoriya. All Might said. What? You expect me not to fight back when a crazy beach tries to kill me? Error. The last thing Melissa remembered was her body going into shock from withdrawal and the green 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 laughing. Izuku actually started laughing. Are you seriously on that? 𝐬𝐻T augmentations don't need M. Dr. Strange getting a call from Izuku about a surgery on Island was not the first thing he expected. Doing a complete graft of a new augmentation layout was a surprise, but a welcome one. But Strange. How's your hands? Law took a puff. Heard you had a little accident. You'd know if you answered the calls. Your insurance didn't cover me. Law said, smirking. I had over $1 million a year in insurance in my hands alone. Strange said, glaring at him. Look, let's just fix this beach, alright. Izuku said, you brought the stuff I told you about. Yes. Are you serious about lining nerves with fiber optic cable? Strange asked. Izuku said. Great, I'll call Momo after we get the connections and make a proper prosthetic. You know the union is gonna kill you for making prosthetics, right? Law said. Let them try. Izuku and Strange said in unison. December 14th, well, I guess it's make or break. I'm finally adding a lemon. If you guys don't like it, I might rewrite the chapter, but honestly I don't know. Melissa Lab, the UA students present, had looked around. Interesting art style. Momo said, looking at the severed arms and limbs. Yeah, those are the old ones. Melissa said. So what's your latest, babies? May asked, looking around the room. Well, the bioreactor was the latest one for my collaboration with Life Corporation, Melissa said, but they're a corporation. Izuku said, they saw a 𝐒𝐻𝗫 in the armor and ran with it. It's not your fault they are assholes. Momo said, a tragedy to a fly is a feast to a spider. You did get all of their 𝐻T out of me, right? Melissa asked. Yep, all new pieces. Glad Momo was here or we'd be stuck waiting for the pieces. Izuku said. So, any interesting babies you have? May asked. May asked, this is my nanoceramics. May said. The way it's structured. May said, that blade isn't rolled up in your arm, it's rapidly constructed out of ceramic. Check your HUD, you should be able to fire it like a projectile. Izuku said. Melissa blinked and looked. Oh, anything else? Momo asked. Oh, my glass shield cloak. Melissa said. Izuku pulled the strings on his jacket and pulled up the hood. Izuku pulled the strings on his jacket and pulled up the hood. Melissa's jaw fell as he too vanished. It's still impressive. Momo said to Melissa. Hold up. Melissa said, pulling up a diagram, active noise cancelling on my legs. The first step is recorded by the other and the anti-sound is produced. Izuku said, showing his shoes, I call them panthers. Oh. Melissa pressed her lips together. I have this static long fall system. I call it Icarus landing. May held up her phone. What? Melissa looked at the schematic too. What? Melissa looked at the schematic. She started to think. Oh, my rhino plate. Melissa said. Izuku wiggled his fingers and the door was opened by a suit of armor. Izuku retracted the undersheath from his arm. Gold titanium plates over memory metal undersheath. Melissa opened a door and dug through a closet. Your suit is cute, but no way you're topping this. It was an old idea I had before. It was an old idea I had before this. Melissa said, gesturing to her arms. It was designed to survive 3 full power punches from Uncle Toshi. I didn't have a name for it, but I think I'd call it the full gauntlet. I think she got you, Momo said. What do you use for it? Mei asked, looking deeply at it. Izuku looked at it and smirked. Nanoparticles. Wait, no. There's no way you dash, Melissa started. Izuku removed his jacket. Melissa had actually leaned back. But how? Melissa shouted, the machine to make those would dash. You don't use one machine to make all of them, you make about 100 and they make more of themselves. Izuku said, and if we upscale it we can lower the build time. I thought Melissa started. Technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. Mei said. Don't get mad, there are other smart people in the world. Momo said, naughty girls who throw tantrums get punished. Oh, you want to spank me? Melissa asked, how do you know I won't like it? Is that a challenge? Momo asked as a writing CRP materialized in her hand. Please you can handle Madam Thickness. Melissa asked, slapping her butt. Please you can handle Madam Thickness. Melissa asked, slapping her butt. Oh, I know I can. Momo said, the safe word is red light. Bring it on. Melissa said, jiggling her rear end. I bet anything you couldn't last 5 minutes. Okay. 5 minutes each of us. Loser has to do one thing the other says. Momo said, first to cry out in pain losses. Momo got closer and smirked. Cameras live. I guess lime warning. Momo licked her lips. Left or right? Momo thought. Crack of. Melissa couldn't prevent it from slipping. First swing. Me thinks someone a little too confident in her cake. Momo teased. I'll show you confident when you eating it. Melissa said. Whack, Melissa grunted. Smack, smack, smack. Melissa had lost count. Forgetting her HUD had the time in the corner. Oh, come on, get a grip, shield. Melissa thought. Crack, diminute, my rhino is helping at all. Maybe I can. Oh no you don't, oh no you don't. Momo said as the older woman's body started to be covered in a reflective black ooze. A magnet was pulled out Momo's arm and without breaking her swings held it to above her waistline. Okay. Melissa shouted as her underwear was wedged up her crack. Beach, I was the one to make the ferrofluid. Smack, you think I don't know how it works. Smack, you don't escape your punishment. Red light. Melissa said. What was that? Crack, red light, yow dash. Crack, 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 everything you say ends with enthus. Red light emitus. Melissa said, my tushy can't handle it. 3 minutes 21 seconds. Mei said. Momo yanked the back of the string she called underwear up and held it like a trophy. Melissa being lifted off the ground before it was ripped off. Just wait, you'll still be kissing it. Melissa said. No rubbing it. Mei said. Fine. Melissa said, give me a second. After grabbing a drill and removing something, Melissa grinned. Let's see you handle enough force to break walls. Momo smirked and lowered her jeans. I'll give ya a fair fight. Melissa had reeled her arm back. Her HUD targeting the sit spot. The swing connected with a fleshy echo. Momo, harder, mommy. Melissa had tried the big swing and Momo had kept smirking at her. Melissa had grabbed her underwear. They looked like the same as hers and she was stronger than the creation quirk user. Let's see how you like tasting cotton. Momo's face was turning more red than Melissa's, but what the hell? Melissa adjusted a joint on her arm. Redirecting all energy to the elbow and setting a higher number might get some results. It was an unyielding assault on the other rich girl's rear end, but nothing Melissa did got the same results as Momo. 5 minutes are up. Mei said. What? Melissa was shocked. I didn't tell you to stop. Momo said, shaking her butt. But Melissa could read her heartbeat and temperature. Melissa shouted. Being mentored by Midnight herself and being around those two, you learn a thing or two. Momo said. Melissa let go of the underwear and they returned to their place. You win, what do you want me to do? Melissa said. I'll decide that later. Momo said. Lime over. After Melissa was ready to get back to work, she started showing them her experimental work. What? So this is a neural net processor? Melissa asked, holding the 𝗕𝗵𝗲 Izuku. The chip uses a hypercube design to minimize delay in communication between the 24 internal chips. Izuku said, Jarvis is piggybacking in his chip right now. Hey, can I get you guys input on something? Melissa asked. I'd love to. May said. This is a 5D memory crystal. This is a 5D memory crystal. Melissa said, this has been around for years but never able to be made in bulk. I'm trying to make hard drives that incorporate it, but I can't seem to find a proper design. May, Momo and Izuku all looked at it and then to each other. Well, if you're using a laser reading instead of red or blue, try using an ultraviolet one. Izuku said. And you can increase the data reading by adding more lasers. Momo said. Plus adding an internal possessor to cut down on the load of another system. May said. Melissa punched in the suggestions, and before she turned on her 3D printer, Momo stopped her. Pulling out the parts from her chest, the hard drive was assembled. Pulling out the parts from her chest, the hard drive was assembled. Okay, let's see if this works. Melissa checked the speed on her computer. Terabytes of available memory. 3 Tbps per second. Yes. Melissa hugged the 3. We can charge at least 100 grand for dash, Momo tooted. 5 grand at most. But the raw data capacity dash, $40,000 for a 100 terabytes hard drive. That thing has triple that memory and is the size of a standard one. Is not worth it. Izuku said, we can get it even smaller. How? Melissa shouted. Momo just smiled. I know what I want you to do. Okay, Melissa said, we're kinda in the middle of something. May walked around the table and started typing on Melissa's laptop. What are you dash? May unbuckled her jeans and pulled down both them and her panties. May unbuckled her jeans and pulled down both them and her panties. You're gonna give May a rim job. Lemon Melissa smelled the musk of the pink-haired inventor. The ring between the cheeks so inviting to her. She was an anal freak. She'd never deny it. Her tailpipe was always more sensitive. As soon as their tongue entered the brown star of the girl, she could recognize 2 things. 1, it was just as salty as it smelled, and 2, there was something in it. Wait, this was, something flashed on her HUD since she couldn't turn around to see someone behind her. She was getting a rimming too. Oh, if it had been so long since she had someone to rim her. Toys didn't hold the candle to a wet, sloppy tongue. 𝗧𝗓𝗧 is she. She heard the green-haired one say. Melissa shuddered as a bolt of electricity ran through her. She just got off. Momo said, moving away from the mountain oven butt. Let me try something. A single pinky was all it took. Melissa was screaming into May's butt in a haze. Man, you're a bigger butt slut than May. Momo said. Impossible. May said, looking over her shoulder. Momo removed her pinky and put in her thumb. Melissa them into May's back door. Keep that tongue moving. May said. Hey Mel. Momo said. The 21-year-old tried to pull away to look, but her hair was grabbed by May. Beach, you ain't done back there. Melissa doubled her effort. Suddenly something was inside her. It was beads. Covered in lube. My quirk's really useful for all sorts of stuff. Momo said, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 10. Melissa tried to say. 9th K. Momo said. Melissa went cross-eyed as 9 beads the size of ping-pong balls suddenly were manufactured in her rectum. You want more lube? Momo asked. Melissa shook her head. Motorboating May's cake. Good girl. Momo said, the hose ready. Suddenly another hand grabbed the end of the string. I'll take these. Slowly. Way too slowly they were pulled out. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧. Melissa was shouting. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Getting pull started like a lawn mower. You're already dripping oil. Izuku said. Get on with it. Melissa was shouting. Slowly. Momo said, running her hands over the massive cheeks. We want the beach lucid. With a sloppy pop the toy was removed. She felt something on her butt and her heart skipped a beat. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Just jam the whole thing in, forget I'm already warmed up. The head was pressed against her ready and waiting hole, but the head had just gotten into the ring. Come on, please finish what you started, Melissa thought. May shuddered but didn't stop what she was doing. How often did she do this? Melissa was sure she wouldn't be standing after all this. Another hand grabbed her hair. Now I'm gonna let you out of May's tunnel, but you need to answer what we can do to improve the design. How can we improve the layout of the crystal hard drive? Pay attention now, because if anything comes out your mouth that isn't what we want to hear, you're getting tied to that bed and I'll take what currently probing you. Melissa didn't want to be left high and dry. This was the best time she's had since freshman year of college. As her hair was held looking at the screen over May's posterior. Wait, the hole! Melissa shouted. Suddenly the entire length of Izuku's manhood had slipped in. You just got probed by a Martian. Izuku said. Momo had pulled Izuku out to the head, and why? Using an open spot in the center, the data transmission can rapidly increase. A ring light design would minimize the moving parts. Please just let him breed me like a beach in heat. Good girl. Momo said. Hey, what about me? May said. Momo threw her over the table and materialized a strap-on. Let's test out your new motor design. I'm thinking 8 inches would be fine. No, I want more. May said. You get what I give you. Momo said, swatting her butt. You know, if you're so smart, I'm wondering if Lil Izuku has a vibrate function. Melissa said. Surprised you don't. Izuku said. I had a design but Law wouldn't put it in. Guy has a stick up his butt sometimes. Melissa said. Oh, that's gotta be our next project. Maybe a motor ring around the rectum could make it even better. May said. God, I love you guys. Melissa shouted, gripping the ends of the table. We must have her. Momo said. What do you mean, 𝐒𝐭𝐻? Melissa shouted as she had been lifted up. Explain later. Izuku said, I'm almost done. Inside. Melissa shouted, as deep as you can. With a primal roar, Melissa was flooded. Her brain rewired. Hot magma flowed into her deepest pit. Lemon over Melissa started to cry. Are you hurt? Momo asked. No, this reminds me of my old boyfriend. Melissa said as she grabbed a new pair of undies and got redressed. He died during the attack 3 years ago. I haven't had anyone flood my tunnels in a long time. Momo had licked every drop of liquid off everyone before they redressed. So is this like a 𝐒𝐻RM thing, or are you two just really open about relationships? 𝐒𝐻RM. Momo said, we have a number in mind and honestly we're surprised we went that far with you so quickly. Yeah. May said, not even looking back. The toy still lodged in her rectum. She pulled up her pants and sat down. You want to join the Forerunners? We haven't agreed to that name yet. Momo said. Melissa put a hand to her lower back. A crawling in her spine had started at that claim, and May seemed to have the same reaction. Okay, let's work on stuff before we decide on that. Melissa said. Already started on the design. May said. Jarvis. Welcome to your new home. Izuku said as Jarvis was loaded onto the new chip. Hey, where's Micro? Chibi, the tiny robot, had walked out the room, roaming the halls. Finding a room where 2 men were talking. Seriously? You really couldn't come help me? The one with white hairs asked the one holding a sword. Didn't seem important. Law said. Chibi had seen a floating red cloak, seeming to try and avoid the argument. Plus what? Micro said. The cloak flapped, seeming to acknowledge him. What? You know what? F you. The one with the sword said. Micro had unknowingly been taken to 𝗵𝗲 clinging to cloak. As the 4 corny geniuses had finished working on the data chip, Izuku started on the nanoparticles. The machine takes a long time to make enough. Melissa said, reaching into her closet and showing them a pogo stick. This took months to make. You only really need to make a few 1,000 and let them do the rest. Izuku said. That could cause problems. Melissa said, thinking about the consequences. The issue with that is you assume each nanobot is smart enough to replicate alone. Izuku said, you don't make each bot its own individual, you make an army. A living body. Melissa watched as Izuku drew something. Melissa watched as Izuku drew something. Melissa watched as Izuku drew something. Okay, time to explain how this works. Think of the armor as a body itself. Or a country. Watch cells at work. You don't control what your heart or stomach do. You don't tell your body to repair damage or digest food. The armor is similar. Each area is responsible for running itself. Each of these lights are nodes. Each of these lights are nodes. Imagine them each as an individual squad. The central light is the only one with actual intelligence while the rest are simple machines. The nodes have lesser bots responsible for other stuff. The light is the RT node. Repulsor transmitter. They distribute power and the instructions from the main reactor hub. Each RT node has builder bots that repair damage, scanner bots that check if they are properly assembled, simple bots that are just told to go somewhere. Each section can also be changed to different settings. The RT nodes probably have the regular segments programmed as presets to quicken time needed to change form. The RT nodes probably have the regular segments programmed as presets to quicken time needed to change form. His main reactor is just telling the leg nodes, hey, go to the arm district. The RT node tells his builders to collect the basic particles or the lesser bots and carry them off to the required area. The RT node tells his builders to collect the basic particles or the lesser bots and carry them off to the required area. 1. This is the closest I could find to help with explaining. Tony can interface with the suit with his mind, so that's why he can build stuff that isn't pre-programmed like the gauntlet blocker in IW. Friday probably has a program where Tony can quick build stuff with pre-built assets. Friday probably has a program where Tony can quick build stuff. With pre-built assets, the suit is most likely built in layers using a combination of bucky paper, nanofluid, and aerogel. The bulk of particle resting inside the suit for more material. I won't go into detail on the Mark 85 since I'm saving the hard light for later. But to put it bluntly, the gray goo apocalypse can't happen. Look up Isaac Arthur on YouTube. He does so many videos on space and science. Von Neumann Probe explains this, and the quote from Jarvis about Machine Rebellion is from his video Machine Rebellion. Izuku showed the diagram. The lesser pieces are controlled by smaller chips. The undersuit acts as a faster command, but each can operate wirelessly as long as a RT node is present. I can make these. Momo said. Yep. Everything except the power supply. Izuku said. Why not? Melissa asked. I can't make enriched elements. Momo said, pulling a brick of uranium. I can make the elements, but I can't make enriched uranium. Melissa was buffering. Hundreds of ideas going through her head. Suddenly her screen started showing stuff. What? Remote interface. Izuku smiled. Don't try it on my SHT or you'll get another example of what Jarvis does to hackers. Currently around the world. This is Chad Chadwick reporting another explosion. I'm here with the official of this location. Sir, what do you believe caused this? We don't know. Our servers only auto-called people. The rep said, nothing should have caused this. Wait, auto-call. Chad asked, are you the Chuckle F running those DMN spam calls? Chuck, you can't say F on TV. The cameraman said, no F that. Chad said, look me in the eye. Are you the assholes doing those F calls? We weren't hurting anyone. Well, America, you're about to watch a reporter go to jail for attempt at murder. I recommend all the children be removed from the room. To all the adults, enjoy the fight. Taking off his shirt and cracking his knuckles. Around the world, multiple reporters also resorting to swearing or physical violence. Keep rolling. Presentation. The convention was split into different events. Booths with pre-show displays and swag bags of free SHT. New gear and examples of materials to improve existing gear. Ochako and Katsumi were walking around with bags of random free stuff. Where to next? Ochako asked. Call Deku. Katsumi said. Honestly, she didn't really find anything interesting. New phones and laptops. You there, ma'am? What? Come check out the latest in VR technology. Katsumi shrugged and tried it. Ochako pulled out her phone and was looking through her contacts. Excuse me, miss. Someone walked over to her. Yes. Ochako asked. What model is that? Oh, it's the Stark Slate. Ochako said, I think they're supposed to be announced at the presentation. How much did you pay for that? More people approached. Oh, I was given it. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 said. What are the features? What services are available to it? Who makes it? The questions went on and 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 demonstrated the kinetic charge function. Stark Industries. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 said. How did you get it? My dad's company got bought and is now Stark Construction. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 said. What other fields fall under Stark Industries? That company isn't under any title. Hold on, let me ask. What companies does Stark Industries own? Stark Labs, Stark Construction, Stark Energy, Stark Medical, StarkX, Stark Connect and Stark Transport Dynamics. Thanks, I only bought a few stocks. How do I have shares in so many companies? 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 thought, thank Christ 𝗬𝗵𝗲 showed me how to do this. Wow, there's a lot here. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 said, Stark Labs, Stark Construction, Stark Energy. The sound of hundreds of phones currently going through their stock apps made 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 sweat drop. Anything else? One asked excited. I think 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃 also is doing something. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 pulled up May's contact. Hey, what does your company have? 𝗧𝗵 Industries has 3 branches. 𝗧𝗵 Support Gear, General Atomics and 𝗧𝗵 Transport Dynamics. But there's a swarm of people asking me about my phone and where my stocks are. Oh, okay. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗏 got a notification of shares being wired to her. May. If you're a major holder, May's stuff is more interesting. The crowd dispersed as 𝗬𝗏 was actually having fun with the VR helmet. I gotta get one of these. 𝗬𝗏 said, and there's no wires or 𝐻𝐻 to set up. Nope. Just put the helmet on and trace a border square. The person said. Island Expo Izuku, Melissa and Momo were helping with the final check when Melissa's eye flashed. See, it's the union, I gotta take this. She said, walking off. May had been distracted getting ready to announce the warthog and didn't even realize she left. Okay, walk onto stage, remember line, gesture for assistance. May was actually muttering as she looked over the script. And how are you doing? Momo asked Izuku. Oh, I'm fine. Izuku said. It's weird, miss, used our classmate for advertisement, with a smile on her face is the one shaking. Momo said. Stark Industries isn't here for the same reason General Atomics is. Izuku said, I'm here to upstage the latest Apple products and reveal the only phone Stark Industries will ever make. Mayday is here to replace 1.4 billion petrol engines in the world. Stark Industries to the stage. Time to flex. Izuku said, reaching for a sledgehammer out the bed of the warthog. Izuku kissed May and said, you're gonna slay it, babe. You too, girls. And you, ma'am. Pinching her butt before leaving. You got this, 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗏. Grab all your doubt and fear and shove it up your butt. May said to herself, rubbing her temples, F me. Momo tapped her smartwatch and May felt an earthquake in her rear end and let out a breathy We're gonna go out, show the world my baby's greatness, then break the shocks in the back of the warthog. May said to herself. Seriously, you couldn't give me a bigger one. You get what I give you. Momo said, playing with the motor settings. Someone can't be trusted with what she shoves up her tushy. Remember the ring fiasco. It's not my fault Izuku refuses to let me use a micro-reactor to power my last one. May said. And this is why me and daddy control your butt. Momo said, an arc reactor-powered SEC toy was shut down for a reason. It was the best 6 hours of my life. I think my brain was shaken loose. May said. Momo shook her head. Sometimes it was like May's but had more brain in it than most people. The creation hero was not far off. Stage Toshinori, David and a few of his scientists were sitting in a section with a bunch of other investors and wealthy. Toshi was just being poured a glass of champagne from the people serving food when the presentation started. No projectors, no effects, just darkness. Ever since the dawn of power, there's been struggle between renewable energy and conventional means. The speakers said, some say nuclear is bad and some call solar hippie tech. The cameras picked up a light from a phone on stage. No external lights, just the phone lighting up enough for the cameras to see Izuku. I respectfully disagree. His student said, energy is energy. If I gotta build a thermal plant in hell so the millions in hospitals on life support can survive, then get me a goat and a knife. But nothing says any method is mutually exclusive. A hologram from the phone expanded into a screen displaying the particle accelerator being used to build the solar panels. A hologram from the phone expanded into a screen displaying the particle accelerator being used to build the solar panels. Stark Industries will be producing ultra-durable, ultra-light solar cells using our on-site nuclear power plant, Izuku said as the cameras picked up the screen's projector. Stark Industries will be producing clean power in all forms to light and warm homes. If you're interested, check our website. Just as Izuku turned to leave, the evil smile on his face had grown as someone from the crowd had shouted, "What the F was that?" "Oh, this is the Stark slate," Izuku said as the hologram of the phone's specs appeared. "It drops around Christmas for about $2,000. You'll never need to buy another phone again." "Excuse me real quick," Tashinori said, setting his food down and walking off. Stark Industries' laminated graphene composite ensures no more cracked screens or scratches. Ever. Izuku said as if he was just talking about the weather. The unit also can turn electrical, heat, and kinetic impacts into energy. "Prove it." The crowd turned and saw All Might. "Okay, my phone's currently at 10% power, so I've got only 3 hours of charge left." Izuku said, "Mr. All Might, would you kindly take this sledgehammer and charge my phone?" "Gladly." All Might had put the phone on the ground and raised the sledgehammer. "I suggest covering your ears, folks." As All Might had charged up, he had swung down with enough force to prevent the stage from being smashed. Bang. 30% power. All Might started whistling John Henry as he repeated hitting it. Bang. 50% power. Bang. 70% power. Bang. 90% power. All Might picked it up and held it up to the crowd. No damage, no scratches, no dents, no dings. First 10,000 pre-orders gets a limited edition accessory kit. 3. Turning to exit the stage, Izuku reached into his pocket and pulled out the small case. "In my hand is an unlocked brand new slate, not out till Christmas. Go fetch." Throwing it into the crowd. The dog pile was then recorded by Ochako. "Rollstar." Katsumi shouted, laughing as 2 people were on top of a pile both. David leaned over to Tashinori, who walked back in his thin form. "What's our duty of care in this situation? The phone will survive." All Might said, grabbing his food. "Give the crowd 10 minutes. Keep the cameras rolling." David said into a walkie. "Copy that." Melissa, there's something that was brought to my attention. Melissa, there's something that was brought to my attention. The head of the union, Frank Mercer, said. "Yeah, I'm gonna need a refund on the garbage you put in me." Melissa said. "We have installed the most top-of-the-line dash. I told you use the gold alloy for the connectors." Melissa shouted. "Look, Miss Shield, we used dash. You used garbage that was gonna kill me in 5 years." Melissa said. "Look, you need to have your OGs corrected, dash." "Oh, they are." Melissa said, "And Seraph Industries is officially done with the union. I'll be sending my repo men to your facility for hard drives." "Now, Miss Shield, let's not be rash here," Frank said. Melissa got a notification for the video call and she accepted it. Melissa got a notification for the video call and she accepted it. Miss Shield, your arms." Frank turned pale. "Yeah, I got a little work done." Melissa said, smiling. "Wanna explain why none of my internal OGs are my own goddamn company's design? Look at the time dash. I've been under the knife 16 times after the initial surgery." Melissa said, "I've got about $50 billion worth of stolen Seraph Industries property unaccounted for. I suggest you tell me where it is before I cut your junk off. Your company hasn't cracked the bionic nuts yet, have they?" "Look, Miss Shield, you don't want to make this worse than it has to be." The union head said, "We have hundreds of thousands repo men. You don't want a misplaced payment." "I have an All Might," Melissa said, glaring. "None of your trash is in me anymore. You want it, you'll get it after it's used in court." Melissa hung up and pulled out a cigarette. "Jackass," Melissa said. "Hey, you can't smoke in here." Melissa walked right past them and headed towards the investor's room. 𝗵𝗲 walked onto stage with a grand display. The future of engine technology is here before you. 𝗵𝗃 started 12.0 liquid-cooled hydrogen-injected IC is capable of up to 2,000 horsepower when at peak efficiency and a towing capacity of about 20 tons. 4 independent motors powered by 350-pound solid lithium batteries at each burst-proof carbon nanotube can maintain a 78 miles per hour for 500 miles on the backup wheel engines. 4 independent motors powered by 350-pound solid lithium batteries at each burst-proof carbon nanotube can maintain a 78 miles per hour for 500 miles on the backup wheel engines. In addition to the engine's 4 20-pound hydrogen fuel cells, the unit can hold 30 gallons of unprocessed water and convert collected water from the surrounding area into fuel. 𝗵𝗲 said Arctic variants for colder climates can turn snow directly into power. The roar of an engine as the spotlight shone on Momo driving it in plus the roar of an engine as the spotlight shone on Momo driving it in. People of Holy Terra. The Warthog. 𝗵𝗲 said. Chapter 1 had typed but never finished. United Nations meeting. The Iron Ring is out of range of any country. The Iron Ring is out of range of any country. It has a permanent population and its own economy and government. Izuku said as he stood before the United Nations, our factories and farms trade with every nation. Our power plants exist in every country. The united leaders of the world had been sitting before them. I stand before the 193 representatives of the united countries of this planet to mark the official of Terra's first floating nation. And if we allow this to pass, what is stopping you from claiming the moon itself? The leader of China asked. Izuku tapped a button showing the moon's recent transformation. A shell of metal construction had recently become visible from telescope due to the light distortion. A shell of metal construction had recently become visible from telescope due to the light distortion. The construction of the moon city is already in motion. It has been for the last year. Izuku said, this meeting would have happened whether or not the Iron Ring. It was a long debate until the results were announced. It is my honor as the President of the United States of America and a member of the United Nations to announce by unanimous decision we will add the Iron Ring to the United Nations of Earth. Lex said shaking hands with Izuku and the newest flag to join the UN. Lex said shaking hands with Izuku and the newest flag to join the UN. This was the closest thing I could make that would fit what I wanted for the Iron Ring. The ring was officially designated a true city on August 2nd of 21XX. The announcement and the medias around the world had rushed to officially get a peek of the city. The main method to get to the ring was by passenger economy Pelican ships. The seating was much different from conventional planes, being much more compact, and with the added benefits of having layered one. The seating was much different from conventional planes, being much more compact, and with the added benefits of having layered. The seating was much different from conventional planes, being much more compact, and with the added benefits of having layered. The seats are utilized in such ways to keep cost low. Izuku said, explaining as he just stood and grabbed a hook his feet, magnetizing to the floor. Each trip to and from Earth costs about $5 total to run, so charging $2 a passenger isn't a death sentence to our economy. How do you keep such a low cost? One asked. Because the ships are designed and built with titanium alloys and carbon nanotubes. Each one can remain in the air indefinitely and are capable of lifting 66 metric tons without a change in speed. The highest one has ever gotten off the ground with was 100 metric tons, but it was slowed by the load. As the airship pulled into the loading bay, an arm grabbed the ship and a path appeared. As the airship pulled into the loading bay, an arm grabbed the ship and a path appeared. 5. Yes, I am aware of the ship. I know who they are. A tall blue woman said, seeming to be speaking before looking over her shoulder. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Cortana, an AI companion to all of the Iron Ring's people and the Chief of State. Always happy to be of assistance. She said, winking before turning around. Allow me the honor of welcoming you to our appealing city. Forhang City. So she's just a helper to anyone in the city. So she's just a helper to anyone in the city. Correct. Cortana said, all inhabitants and anyone in the city need only ask and I will assist. So you're like an Alexa? No and yes. She said, "My duty is to ensure the citizens are an optimal balance of freedom and safety." So what exactly is the government of the Iron Ring? We were told it was a democracy, but if robots run things, how is it not a cyberocracy? The governing AI have studied the collective history of all nations as have my creator and have come up with an optimal system to run the city without infringement on the lives of citizens. Cortana said, "Many flags have appeared that have been addressed to ensure a system with as few possibilities of corruption as possible." It was shown how each citizen had a chain code registered along with a proper scanned file on their body. A trend of dead citizens voting is common in the United States and has caused many issues. However, with this method, along with all citizens having a 1 million-digit citizen ID number much similar to a license number or a social security number, however, this method has lower chance of identity theft. So what about things like privacy and civil rights? Oh, all citizens are allowed privacy. I am available at request, however utilization is not mandatory in homes. Cortana said, "But if everyone has a chain code, then you'd need to have everyone doing it. When a child is born in our hospitals, just as a checking of the father's DNA is standard practice, so is cataloging at 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. Anyone arriving from foreign nations and wish to join will require registering a chain code to receive a proper passport. So what's your educational system like? The citizens of the Iron Ring have access to the many hypertrains that span the ring, and all children receive access to our educational facilities. The citizens of the Iron Ring have access to the many hypertrains that span the ring, and all children receive access to our educational facilities." A short trip later, "This is our school teacher, miss. So how was everyone's break?" "I got a girlfriend." Mineta says. "What?" "Everyone including class 1B and the teachers minus Izuku shouts. Glasses materialize on Izuku's face. "Sorry about this, seems weird placement, but this needs to be written to start the space arc and because my writer's block needs to be dealt with. This was written in November of 2021, I'm finally trying to pick this back up. Now for those that aren't in the abyss of Halo lore, if you're confused, these videos are what you need to know to understand this chapter. F up things about the Forerunners, 𝐒𝐩𝐢𝐵 history, and the librarian May and Melissa are Halsey in this story. Stark Labs, come on, it's not a problem. Melissa said. I say go through with it. May said. May, I've told people that AI can't be just rapidly built in a day. Izuku said, it needs time to grow and to be actually raised and taught. Come on, we'll make sure it's safe. Melissa said, I got a really good feeling about this. Same. May said, something is telling me we need to. I got a good feeling deep inside me. Well, so do I, but experience tells me it's not a good idea. Izuku said, scratching his back. Ever since the brain chip in Chibi came up to Melissa, she had been wanting to make an AI using brain mapping. The suggestion had caused reactions to both the cyborg and the inventor. A tingling in the back of Izuku's neck that was both shouting do it but also seeing images of Ultron. Look, I don't trust it. Izuku said, we can't just rush into this one. Melissa POV, 𝗵𝗵𝗏. The blonde thought as she was headed back to her room. Melissa's but was screaming. It was like she could feel an anger from it. This wasn't a new thing. Melissa always had a weird relationship with her, but it was around when she got into science had it started changing. Like something was woke up inside her. She never looked deeper to realize what was going on. A gene song had been activated. 𝐒𝐻𝑒𝑎's was the closest thing to a soul in neurophysics. The collective experience of an individual stored in the very DNA of a species waiting for something to wake it up. This was a theory of why all heroes have their body moved before they could think. And it was only recently being truly looked into. Melissa had met the requirements to truly wake it up when she started bionics. When she wasn't paying attention, her body could flow through her lab and construct things that sometimes even baffle her. When she was rebuilt, this seemed to grow even more common. It was to a point her but seemed to actually think and further controlled her actions. She couldn't say it ever directly went against her, but the fact she had a four-way with 3 people she just met was definitely something she wouldn't have done herself. The fact she's currently in a lab working with tech she had only dreamed of made her think her but had a point on occasion. Melissa had turned on her rectal implant and grabbed a notebook. Paper and pencil seemed to be good when she was letting her mind wander for more ideas. the powerful vibrations helping her zone out. Her hand had moved until she was snapped back into reality, looking at a new August. First light was 𝗵𝗏𝗏, finally. It's almost time. First light weaves 𝗵𝗏𝗏, said, in the mindscape of Melissa Shield. More accurately her butt. The human body was different than the ones that had been destroyed by the Great Purification. The human body was different than the ones that had been destroyed by the Great Purification. The nervous system had biologically changed, and with that a full takeover of her 𝗔𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗲 new holder wasn't possible without external influence. As life shaper of the 𝐿ifeworker rate, she had ensured her 𝗔𝗂𝘁 would awaken in a proper vessel. The downside that bit her in the butt was her butt. Due to the mutations throughout her centuries of existence and augmentations, the majority of her brain was in her butt. It wasn't a bad thing during her life. The brain matter in her skull was for image processing and sensory, which most of the time her battle skin had handled. First light weaves 𝗵𝗏𝗏 honestly didn't remember the last time she had ever walked due to her battle skin hover capabilities. And of her many mutations over the years and the constant pattern transfer, many of the mutations had compounded. It was amusingly similar to human wisdom teeth or the appendix. They were there and didn't affect anything unless something happened. Like the mutations during the Great Famine early on in the Primoris Prognatus Forerunners history. Due to a boom in population, they had to restrict breeding until they could increase food production. The population was just at the 10 billion mark and hadn't started truly colonizing. So how do you stop a biological need without ruining a population? Just make something a better option. It wasn't exactly new at the time of the Forerunner history, and it wasn't a dangerous thing to just double the number of nerve endings in the rectums of the women of the species. It was only temporary till a proper solution was fixed. It only took 10 years till the life workers had created vertical farming, and then 30 to create a method to turn organic matter into raw nutrients that fed directly into personal armors. She had looked back fondly of the times Shadow of Sundered Star had just pushed her onto her workbench and just plowed her like an animal. It was 1,200 years later she had realized something was wrong. She had imprinted into a new body and the mutations had compounded. It was doubling the doubling of nerve endings. As the decades turned to centuries that turned to millennia, she had only loved it more and more as she had worked to further the Forerunners. To use a human phrase, a king makes love to his queen. A union forged in stars and bound as densely as a neutron star. It was during the war with prehistoric humans had it truly stopped. The Prometheans needed their leader and the 𝗬𝗓𝗏 had lead. The Liberian had always looked back at the moment she had to lock away her husband in the cryptum with distress. The Liberian had always looked back at the moment she had to lock away her husband in the cryptum with distress. When the new didact was chosen from the builder rate, there was no other candidate better than Bornsteller Makes Eternal Lasting to take up the title of 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏. Ambitious for projects and ideas, even 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 complimented. Ambitious for projects and ideas, even 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 complimented. The pattern transfer had been successful. It wasn't until much later that it was discovered what went wrong. The memories were imprinted, but the consciousness was not. Knowledge. Fighting capability. Personality. The manipular of a long line of builders, second only to 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 in talent without a previous pattern transfer or mutations, was supposed to be a perfect transfer. But it was when she had addressed him a decade after the imprint, when his neural pattern should have shifted into her husband, did she learn about the mutation in the young Forerunner. He had stayed Bornsteller Makes Eternal Lasting and adamantly refused to respond to Shadow of Sundered Star. I took what was useful and just deleted when I saw useless. Were the words that shocked the ecumene. Seemed illogical to let a malcontent continue to exist in our society. It was later she had learned he had been in the room when 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 got the news. I just asked the MStar builder if I could build the shield worlds. The ISO didact said. What really struck First Light was 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 was 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏 was planning on a pattern transfer for Bornsteller Makes Eternal Lasting instead of her husband, so a favoritism was given to the 𝗕𝗏𝗏𝗏. The two had decided to try with their relationship since he was by Forerunner law her husband. The relationship had been a reminder of the early centuries with her first husband. With her time to reflect on past, she had thought a lot over the time humanity re-evolved after the second firing without her aid. This was how she was trapped in the body of Melissa Shield. Her work to improve Earth's memory storage and technology had been advanced with the happy tragedy of her new host. But it was when she had seen the green-haired boy she had been struck by a sensation of familiarity. That confidence, that intelligence, that swagger was a human word to describe it. There was her husband. She could tell Shadow of Sundered Star was there. Or Born Stellar Makes Eternal Lasting. There was a feeling in her that just knew he was there. But when she had convinced Melissa to check him, she had been attacked by a superior AI that reminded her of mendicant bias. As she regained consciousness and her carrier had gotten to know these others, she found a kinship and another shock. A second awakening of her gene song. Melissa wasn't the only active 𝐒𝐻𝑒𝐻 of the librarian. "Hey May, how often do things blow up when you're working?" Melissa asked. "A lot." Izuku and Momo said, "Hey, it's called progress." May said 𝗵𝗲𝗄𝐵 explained. "I had the same problem before my 𝐒𝐽𝑔." Melissa said, "My body seems to reach for a tool I don't have. My HUD warns me about it before it happens, so it doesn't happen as often." "Really?" May asked, "Maybe when the 𝗓𝗵𝗲 is complete we can do something." "How about you, Momo?" Melissa asked. "I'm good," Momo said, holding up her arm with her smartwatch. So speaking about the 𝗓𝗵𝗲, Melissa started as she felt a screaming in her, "But could I take part in the testing? Glad to have another human test subject." Izuku said, pulling up the notes and plans for it. First Lightweave's living song looked at the formula with nostalgia. It was rudimentary compared to the mutations of her people, but it was the first step to rebuilding the Forerunner Empire. "Plus, we can get these parts easily," Melissa said.